Oh man, he's gone already.
I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know. I guess he was
uh
scared.
well, I hope his ducks show up better than he's showing up right now later. Anyway, happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to Coast, college football pregame show, episode number 11, week number 7 for the season, and it is rivalry week number 1. I am your host. I thought I was going to be your moderator, possibly referee today. Uh, Bill Shacross, how is everyone? But it looks like Ohio State is the only team that's going to show up today. So I'll bring in, as
Microcosm,
always, maybe,
microcosm of the
maybe
day.
this could be. This could be. Alex might be jinxing his whole team right now. Um, but I'll introduce everybody to the excited Buckeye today. My Buckeye brother from another mother, Mr. Cottrell Simpson. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling more confident than ever. You know, this game, obviously, huge game, number 2 versus number 3. But I will tell you this: I was a lot more worried about this game in the beginning of August than I am today. I know Oregon's undefeated, number 3 team in the country. It won't just be a walkover kind of game, but I truly felt like coming into the season, this was going to be that 50-50 matchup. And as much, shit as I gave Alex about, me thinking Ohio State would win, I was in a space where I felt like I wouldn't have been surprised if Oregon won the football game. Obviously, I was expecting Ohio State to win, but I would not have been surprised if Oregon won. I'll say this: we're not even there yet. I'll just give you guys my insight on it. I would be shocked if Oregon won this football game today. That's how I'm feeling today. So that's how I'm starting off the show.
So I'm not going to go as far to say that I would be shocked. But after, even after, I kind of made my pick on this Wednesday, but even after, um, you know, diving into it a little bit more the last couple of days, I will say I feel a little bit. I would say I feel even more better about my pick, more confident in my pick. But they're still at home, so I'm not going to say shocked. But the helicopter man himself is here. I have no idea what the hell's on his head. Um,
It's a duck, baby. It's a duck.
oh my lord, this is
I
gonna
know.
be
I know.
a
It's
long.
exciting, Bill. This is exciting. I'm so ready for the show. Look, I'll lose the hat for you just so I don't distract you, okay? Look at this. See this hair? This is the hair of a man who's been up for 48 hours counting down to this game. Ever since the Niners whipped Seahawk ass on Thursday Night Football, I've been just counting down to this day, thinking about the tears that are going to fall down Cottrell's face tonight at 7 p.m.
Alex, so
Well,
all of this talk, and you couldn't even show up to the show on time. All this talk, you couldn't even be here for the
Fashionably
beginning
late.
of it.
Fashionably late, my friends. We're at
well,
home,
you,
okay?
you
I'm
and
not going
Yeller.
nowhere.
well, never. Better late than never, I guess. Mr. West Coast himself, Oregon Duck Hat, Mr. Eye Black Alex Elmore, Duck fan number 1, has finally showed up to the podcast. I hope your team shows up on time later, because if not, it could be trouble.
They ain't got to travel far, Bill. They ain't got to travel far. Don't you worry. Look here. This game is so big this week. Everyone's coming to us. We ain't got to go nowhere. Pat McAfee in town. College game day in town. The chick from, what is it? Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Graduated from the University of Oregon. I had no idea about that. She's guest hosting today on College game day. Like, all the celebrities are in town. Ducks know what time it is. We're here for the win, baby. The only reason Sabrina
Well,
Ionescu's not here is because we're winning a WNBA. She's gonna win a WNBA championship. So
not
we're all
that
here
big
in
Well,
play
town.
the other night.
That's
and
true.
then the other thing is that, hey, you say that, we had to come to you, but the reason they're in town is for the Buckeyes. This will be your only game where you get game day to come out, and it's because we came to town. Ohio State, they'll have a couple more if as long as things go the way that they should. So
With how easy their schedule has been, they haven't had one yet. That's for sure.
we
All right.
haven't had one
All
yet
right.
either.
All right. See, we're getting to
FCS
moderator time
schools.
now.
Let's do
We
this.
will get to that game shortly. We have some recaps we have to go over. Obviously, breaking the huddle headlines, and we have a lot of previews today. So we do got to get going because, like I said, before waiting for Alex to join in, it is rivalry week number 1. There is some bangers on the docket today. Besides Ohio State and Oregon, but that is the main course. That will be last. Once we get to that, I will probably stop talking for about 20 minutes. So it will be fun. Justin Louder, as always, thank you for being here early and on time. You should tell your friend to do the same. Since he actually has like responsibilities to the show. But let's
I
get
got
going.
no responsibilities for Cottrell today, right? I got nothing.
All right, let's go. Headlines time. Let's get cracking, boys.
All right, we're breaking the huddle today. We got some big news. This is a lot more action-packed news than we normally have. We'll start down below. Another University of Georgia player arrested this week. This time, no vehicles were involved, so at least they're keeping us on our toes. But this is the second family domestic abuse offense that's happened this season. What's going on in Georgia, man? Kirby Smart needs to find some way to right the ship here, because you can't keep having 5 to 7 guys arrested every season.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on. Kirby Smart is focused on football. He clearly does not have an ounce of care in the world for his players as players. Because if that were the case, then there would have been suspensions and, dismissals from the program. And I get it. He did ultimately dismiss Ra from the team. And this kid that had been arrested, he is indefinitely suspended. But at this point, though, it's like, I don't want to say too little, too late, but we just talk. It feels like every other week we're talking about something new that happens to a Georgia football player. So, yeah, the dismissal, that one dismissal happened, and then this one suspension happened. But there's been like 25, 26 to 30 other kids where nothing has happened. And so if that's the case and they know that they're just going to get a slap on the wrist for doing whatever they want to do, as long as they're playing good football and winning football games, then that's what they're going to do. So Kirby Smart needs to get control of his program here. I don't want to go out and just say the NCAA needs to step in and do something drastic here, but I think as much as this keeps happening, the NCAA should start to consider like, hey, there's been, 28, 30 different violations here. If this trend continues, maybe we're going to have to limit your scholarships for one season. Maybe you're going to go down, instead of having 85 scholarship players, maybe you only get 75 scholarship players and you guys got to figure out the other 10. Maybe they, if it keeps going super south, maybe they say, hey, Georgia gets a 1-year postseason ban. You guys need to go a year without having an arrest or, these charges on your players, so that the NCAA doesn't look bad. In reality, that would be their reason for covering it up. But I think Kirby Smart, he's doing a great job on the field, obviously, but off the field, it really feels like he's failing his players.
So quickly, I'm going to agree with everything you said, and I think the two main parts that you hit on that I think are the most important is lack of control. He's got to hire. I'm sure Georgia has it, but maybe who's ever in charge of player control and compliance and all that stuff. They usually have a lot of other jobs that include like kind of keeping these kids out of trouble or making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. Maybe those people need to fire. He's got to bring different people in, because right now it looks like he has no institutional control. We've heard that term a million times before. To Cottrell's other point, which I think is really important, at some point, it's got to fall on Kirby, and at some point, the NCAA is going to get involved in this. And then once they get involved, they don't get uninvolved. So they'll get involved, and then they won't be done with this until there is some kind of sanction or some kind of penalty. I will give him credit. He dismissed this kid really quick, I think, once the details of what happened emerged. But like Cottrell said, we're almost at like 30 different situations since they won the national championship. And I understand he's a great coach. Again, I like Kirby Smart. But at some point, this can't be, this can't be like Varsity Blues. Like, this can't be like kids are playing football games, winning games on Saturday, and then just run around the town Saturday night and do whatever they want to do. Like, other schools can't do this. And I'm actually quite frankly shocked that nationally, like news-wise, they just continue to get away with this. Like this doesn't even get brought up on any like major show. Like I can't imagine what would happen if this is at Bama or even like Notre Dame, Michigan, Ohio State. Like, I don't know how Georgia keeps continuing to get a free pass on this. I really don't. Like, people have died. Like that's what I mean. Like this isn't like, oh, like some kids like threw like a brick through a window. Like this all started with the national championship game the night, and people died, and like it hasn't stopped. Like I'm honestly appalled that nobody's just picked up on this and just started asking real questions. Like even when he does interviews, like people don't even ask him about it. Like I don't understand how that's a thing, but he's got to get control of it. He's got to get control of it, because if not, eventually he's going to get in trouble, and then it's going to cost the program, and it's going to cost the program on what he can do on the field. And maybe that's what it's going to take. I don't know.
I think one thing that Cottrell said that kind of stuck with me, and I agree with both of you. Also, I'm not arguing with anybody in this situation. But what Cottrell said is that Kirby Smart is too focused on football. You know who else is too focused on football? Nick Saban was too focused on football. Dan Lanning's too focused on football. Day up in Ohio State, he's too focused on football, and they're not having these issues. You know, all these big name programs that are also focused on football are still able to keep their kids in line, still able to raise good human beings, or not raise, but help mold good human beings. Not saying people at Georgia are bad, or they're bad students or bad people, but man, I tell you, after so many situations, you got to start looking at who's in charge. You know, if a kid if you have a bad kid, it's the parent's fault. Well, in a college football situation, who's the parent in the situation? It's the coach. So you got to do something. You got to find a way to straighten it out. And just like I said, maybe it is a college bowl ban, which would be absolutely insane for Georgia to be hit with. But if that's what it takes to kind of get the point across, then we got to do it. I mean, too many people are getting hurt, or risking injury, or like Bill said, people have died in these situations. So they got to take it more seriously than what they're doing right now. Any more comments about Georgia before we kind of move on to some NIL news?
No, I think
until the next one, I'm out of stuff to say.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on the same page, and I think nationally, I think most people would kind of agree with everything we just said. So, moving on.
All right, people. So Kendrick Perkins, not college football related, but he was in the NBA. He's a talk show host on ESPN, or he does talk shows on ESPN. He just started a brand new company called Nilly, which is Nilly, and essentially it's an NIL agency that essentially offers seniors out of high school contracts from $25,000 up to $100,000. Basically, it's a cash advance on their future NIL earnings. Now, if they sign this contract, and ESPN got a hold of one of these contracts, this is kind of what it looks like. The contract pays out the student $50,000 to this high school senior in exchange for the exclusive rights to sell his name, image, and likeness for 7 years. In that contract, Nilly and his investors will receive a 25% cut of the player's NIL earnings for the length of the contract, or until Nilly earns a total of $125,000. So essentially, these kids are coming out of high school, being given this cash before any NIL agreements are made, and then this company Nilly is going to profit off of what they make in NIL for their college career. Is this company a risky move, or is this kind of the direction that we were always heading?
I personally think this is a bad idea, just because there's going to be some kids that are really good coming out of high school that ultimately need the money like up front like this, which is going to be good for them in that instance. But then maybe they don't pan out, and maybe they're stuck essentially paying this back. And in reality, they may not have a way to. If you get a kid that's let's say in basketball, I know we're a football show, let's just say for basketball, you get a kid that kind of gets buried. He goes to a Duke or North Carolina, they get buried on that roster, and then they ultimately end up going to a smaller school like I don't know why these are the first schools that come to mind, but like a St. Bonaventure or Valparaiso, something like that, where NIL deals aren't going too crazy there. They kind of, in a sense, sold their soul to the devil, because then they'd be stuck making up that money on their own there. I think it's a smart business to get into because there's definitely a market for it, but I see this being more of a detriment to the players than I see it being a good thing.
I'm going to agree with Cottrell on this. Alex mentioned something like this is always the way we were headed. No, it's not. This is, again, talked about it before. I'm not going to get into it really again, but this is not what NIL was originally supposed to be. It's not even close to it. I think private people getting into it to try to profit off kids now, I'm not okay with that. I like Perkins. Like, I like Perk. Like, it's nothing against him. like Cottrell just said, from his point of view and his investors, it's a smart decision. I don't think these guys should be allowed to be anywhere near the kids though. I don't think you need kids coming out of high school like that getting money before they step on campus. I think that's a bad idea. And like Cottrell said, Cottrell mentioned the bigger ones, and there's probably 5 or 6, other crazy reasons how this all goes wrong and goes in the wrong direction. Not to mention, if you're one of like the bigger kids, when you get on campus, the college is going to have NIL set up for you anyway. That you don't need to, those kids don't have to worry about making money anyway. So I don't like it because, like Cottrell said, I feel like it's designed for more the mid-tier kids. And then if they get there and stuff doesn't go their way, and again, there's thousands of kids that commit to these schools that never play. And I don't think people realize that. You can't have a kid sitting on the sideline that, never makes it past third on the depth chart, and now all of a sudden he's going to owe these people money. Like I don't think that is a good situation for anybody. I think if Perk wants to set up and help people, I know Portnoy's been in the news earlier. I'm just using him as an example. He said he's willing to donate a certain amount of money, but it would be under institutional control. If Perk wanted to do something like that and like make deals with the colleges, I'm fine with that. I'm sure there's a way for him to get kickbacks on that. I think making these kids sign 7-year contracts when they're 18 years old, not having a clue about what's really going to happen with them with playing time or what's going to happen when they're on campus, that I have a huge issue with. Like there's a million ways this goes wrong. And like I said, I don't think you can have a freshman that gets on campus that gets a smack of reality and goes, "Oh, I'm not going to play this year." And now all of a sudden I have this $50,000, what's for lack of a better term, loan sitting over my head, and I can't even get on the field, and the program's not, pushing me to get NIL anywhere else because I'm not a factor yet. We don't need freshmen with that stress over their head, and then kind of being like, "Oh, well, you owe us a cut, you owe us this, that." Like this is an awful idea. And again, I like Perk. I think there's different ways you could do this. The way it's set up right now, I couldn't like it any less. I agree with Cottrell.
And I think the other thing too, Bill, that just kind of furthers the point. You said $50,000 loan. I mean, in reality, based on what Alex said, it's really like a $125,000 loan because that's what it's going to take to get them out of this deal. So I mean, the $50K up front sounds great. And again, from a business perspective, I mean, if you can get over 100% returns on your investment, then of course it's the move to make. But I just feel like this is borderline exploiting kids because there's going to be kids that I personally, like, the first thing I thought of was like the bigger kids that go to these big time schools, but there's going to be other kids that go to mid-tier schools like an Indiana or a Rutgers, and they're like, hey, they're going to give me $50K like right up front, like fine, like no problem, I'll be here for 4 years, like I know I'm not going to the league, and it'll give me a chance to capitalize on this stuff. But then reality sets in, and you're at that school for 2 to 3 years, and you don't get playing time. And maybe even some of those kids, like I use one where they're going from big time D1 schools to smaller D1 schools. There's kids that leave D1 and ultimately go to D2, D3, like JUCOs. Like I just see this going really bad, like kind of quickly.
You know what this really is, honestly. Like it is close to extortion. It really is. This is like when you get to college campus as a freshman, and you're there for like orientation day, and you're walking around, and there's all those credit card companies there trying to get you to sign up. And they go, yeah, like we're gonna give you a credit card, like we'll prove you, like we'll give you a credit limit of like $1,000, and you're like, oh, this is like great, like I'll have it like just in case of emergency.
Yep.
And then you sign up, and you don't read the fine print, and they're charging you like 27% interest on everything you buy, and it takes you like 2 years to pay off like a tank of gas. That's what this is. That's really what this is. So I don't like it for the sport. I think there's a way. Perk could do this a different way and still help kids if that's really what his goal is. If it's just to make money, then I hate it even more.
I mean, three financial experts compared it to a high interest loan. And they were debating whether this is quick cash that comes at too steep of a price. And like I said, for years, there was no money being thrown around that we knew about in college football. And these kids were able to get by. The colleges still help these kids get set up and established. And we didn't hear about, oh, local football player, misses game because he's broke and has to work at Wendy's. You know what I mean? Like, we don't hear that. We didn't hear that before. So I think this company, I think the principles are there, but I don't think the execution is going to be there. And I don't think this company is going to be around long enough to really make an impact. But yeah, I mean, Control, you're absolutely right. It says that no matter what they give the student, they're going to be getting 2.5 times their initial investment back before it's all said and done. So that's a huge amount of profit, especially if you have, say, 1,000 kids doing that and you're giving $100,000 to every kid. I mean, you're making bank hand over fist. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of develops as it comes out more. But anything else y'all want to say about Nilly before we jump over to some online harassment?
Nope, I'm good here.
Cool. We'll keep this one short and quick as well. There was a survey done this last year after March Madness. We got resulting in finding out on social media that 56% of harassment, 12% of all harassment that was reported on social media was gambling related. As far as I gamble, Kendrick Perkins doesn't get me an extra rebound, and I'm going on his social media, and I'm going into his DMs or posting how crappy of a player he is, how terrible of a person he is. That's the kind of harassment that we're talking about. And most of these people that are getting this harassment, 56% in fact, are actually the female college athletes that are getting this harassment. So I know it's not a huge news about college football, but on the college landscape as a whole, I mean, how do y'all feel about these people losing bets and then harassing and saying some horrific things to these college athletes who are essentially just kids trying their hardest to become professional or earn a degree?
All right, there's no room for it. I mean, we've me and Cottrell have dealt with this on wire to wire with high profile stuff. High profile athletes going back, over 3 years since we started doing the show. I'm going to say the same thing I always do. It's despicable. There's no place for it. And we only really hear about the high profile stuff. And I think that's the scary part. We hear about the players that are on camera or people that have a high, social, kind of identity. Like, we went through this last year with Angel Reese, her last year, in college because of the whole Caitlin Clark stuff. It's despicable. Listen, this has been going on forever with football players and to some kind of, to a degree with NBA and like Major League Baseball players. We used to see it with fantasy football a lot. But now that like sports betting is pretty much legalized everywhere, yeah, you've 18-year-old kids that are walking into a football stadium on a Saturday and have money on the team, have money on players, individual bets, and it doesn't go right. And they lost the money that their parents gave them for the week. Now they're pissed off and they probably had some drinks, and now they go online to harass people because it's easy access to all these athletes because they need to be on Twitter. They need to be on all these social media streams to get their name, image, and likeness out there and build their brand. So it's a terrible recipe. All these things on their own are okay, minus the harassment, obviously. But when you put them in a bowl all together and you mix them all up and let it be what it's going to be, this is unfortunately one of the better factors you get of it. You're going to have people getting harassed, death threats, all kinds of crap, and it's despicable. There's no repercussions for it, and that's the biggest problem. These kids get on Twitter or get online and do whatever and say vile things to people, and don't realize, especially on a college campus, you're walking around with these athletes the next day. Like you might cross them, and I don't think they understand how kind of vulnerable or scary it could be for the athlete, knowing like, hey, I might have walked by somebody in the courtyard that just said they hope I get hit by a car tomorrow. Like, that's a weird feeling to have as an 18, 19-year-old kid. So it's despicable. I can't, rage against it enough, but unfortunately, that's just where we are in the sports world.
Agreed. And I think that the biggest part of this is that, especially when it comes to college football, like, these are kids. I mean, we say it all the time, like, they're anywhere from 18, 22. So, maybe in the legal sense, like adults there, but these are players who are literally not even in the real world essentially yet. And obviously, especially at the college level, I mean, there's so much pride all those players are giving it, their all. And I get it. NIL has kind of started to take away some of the integrity of the game and things like that. People are starting to be a little bit more, I don't want to say selfish, but essentially selfish and like thinking about themselves more. Like as you see, like more kids hit the portal and things like that. But all these players, like in reality, that's why college football is so interesting. Like they play for the pride of the school, like the rivalries. They mean so much more in college football and things like that. So if these players go out and lose a football game, obviously, that's not what they were trying to do there. A lot of college players, they don't have their own intentions in the game. So the fact that like the harassment is up and it is strictly due to betting, I feel like that's why you're starting to see some states even try to take control of that a little bit. Like I know here in Ohio, we can't even bet on player props anymore for college football. Last year that was a thing and they took that away. I think a big part of that is because one, they want to try and keep the integrity of the game. Like they don't want to see kids like knowing like, oh, my line is at 67.5. Like I'll tell my roommates like I'm not getting the ball that much this week, or I got a nagging injury and I know that under is going to hit there. But I also think a big part of it too is that they don't want to subject more potential criticism on the players. Like I think they understand that, hey, this is a kind of a toxic environment here. We're kind of playing with fire, betting on these college kids. So let's try and stay away from that aspect of it. So I'm with Bill. I do think it's it's crazy, it's nuts, it's despicable was the word that he used there, especially in the college setting there. But with gambling being as big as it is, I mean, I almost feel like even before gambling, like you would have, if a kicker misses a kick in a big time game, like they would be getting death threats or people talking about their family and things like that. So we already had a problem before, but now that betting is in the picture, it's just amplified it, 5-10 times more.
I mean, yeah, you kind of nailed it spot on. Like obviously we've all of us here have gambled at some point, and when I lose, that sucks, and maybe I may put a player on like I'm never betting on that guy again. But my brain never goes to let's go online and let's go send him a message about how much I hate the guy. You know what I mean? Like that never once crossed my mind. I made vent to you guys like, damn, I needed that extra touchdown from Travis Kelce today to hit that parlay or something. But like I'm not going to Travis Kelce's Instagram calling him names. So we gotta be better, people. These are kids. They're trying their hardest. They're doing their best. Like I said, no one's losing on purpose. No one's trying to not have good stats. Everyone's trying to become professional. Everyone's trying to prove themselves. So let's just let them be kids. Let's let them play. Let's enjoy the game. If you want to gamble, but keep that shit to yourself. Anything else as far as online harassment before we jump on to probably the biggest news before we jump into recaps and previews?
I will say, to Justin's point, NIL does kind of go against the school pride to an extent. I actually do agree with that because I do think like there is you can love your school, but if they aren't paying you the amount of money that's due to you, you may have your own other intentions. Before it was essentially playing for the love of the game. Now there are ulterior motives, in picking a school and staying at a school and things like that. So I did just want to highlight that because I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, I mean it's I mean especially on the football side of things, it's become a business now. Most of these kids, I mean, again, like I think a lot of kids still end up going to schools that they like or where they feel comfortable or like maybe they rooted for when they grew up, but there's a huge business side to it now. It gets treated more like the NFL like it ever has before. Like I'm going to go here. Am I going to get marketed right here? Am I going to get the playing time? Like, am I going to get a chance to succeed and build my brand here before I even graduate and go to the pros? Like that all factors in now. Those were conversations people were having 10 years ago. They weren't. And that's the new world we're in now.
And I think the prime example of that would be a guy like Quinn Ewers. Like Quinn, I think he liked Ohio State. Don't get me wrong, but I think all along he knew he wanted to end up in Texas. The only reason why he ended up choosing Ohio State is because he could benefit from NIL there. And at that time, Texas wasn't involved in NIL. So I think that even goes to show you. I know Quinn had some other issues, like just being in terms of like the depth chart and things like that. CJ Stroud going and staying another year and all that. But I think a big part of it was the NIL stuff. Like I think Quinn could have went anywhere and said, hey, ultimately, I know I want to play in Texas. This is my home state. this is probably the team I grew up loving. Like, that's where I want to play, but I can't capitalize on this for another year. So I'll go somewhere, I'll sit, I'll learn, I'll be, you know, a good student or whatever. But ultimately, I want to go to Texas. And I think pre-NIL, it wouldn't have made a difference. He would have just committed to Texas, and, you know, that would have been that. And this isn't even me, like, you know, shitting on Quinn for doing that, because at the end of the day, I'm always for the kids making the right decisions for themselves. I'm just saying that's just a small example of how NIL has changed the like recruiting process, or even just having that pride in your school.
100%
Hey, man.
agree.
Yeah, and then Con Man in the chat here did say, hey, watch how many OG coaches retire. I mean, you just saw Nick Saban retire last year. Maybe because of NIL causing some changes in the college landscape. You also got talks of Kirby Smart. Again, these are just talks of Kirby Smart possibly being mentioned for that new Jets position, getting out of college. Honestly, Clemson and Dabo Swinney looks like the smartest man in the room right now. Not really messing with the transfer portal and NIL and all that stuff so much. Like, Clemson might be putting something together there that might be a good kind of setting point for how the team should be ran. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
Their game against Georgia shows you why they should be hitting the portal. Like, I get it. It's fun beating up on some ACC schools, but Clemson makes the playoffs and they face a big time school that they're gonna wish they hit the portal.
Speaking
of,
I
mean, we didn't talk about Clemson at all. I mean, but since that beating, they've been rolling people. We're gonna end up talking about it more down the stretch here, I'm sure. But you got to, as critical as we are of Dabo, and again, I think it's deservedly so most of the time. He's quietly got them stomping people right now. So
stomping bums. Like, I don't know if they've. Let's see.
20.5 points today. 20.5 point favorites today against who are they playing today? Wake Forest.
App State, NC State, Stanford, Florida State were the last 4 teams they played after Georgia. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. Stanford might make it, but like, I don't know if any of those 4 teams even get bowl eligible at the end of the year. Like, Clemson should be beating the dog shit out of these teams.
Florida State's a powerhouse. How dare you?
That's exactly.
All right, let's get crawling. We got to roll.
Yes. Yeah. Last thing here before we just talked about transfer portal. The D1 Council has agreed to shorten the transfer window from 45 to 30 days. It's 20 days in December now, and 10 days in April. Do you think that the shortening of the transfer window is really going to have that big of an impact, or people are just going to enter in sooner?
I've said from the get-go, I'll be really short here. I want them to do one portal. I said from the get-go. The one thing you hear a lot about from coaches is the reason it's too much is because you finish, again, I don't think people realize you finish the season. These coaches are home for like 2 days, and then they're right back on the road recruiting for the following year, or even a year out from there. Then they come back. Then they got to deal with portal. They got to make sure, they got to find out who from their team is going in the portal, and then they got to go in the portal. Then they go back out recruiting. Then you have spring practice. Then you have the other portal. It's too much. If you want to and everybody keeps saying, oh, it's detrimental to the kids. Okay. I think the December portal is stupid anyway. So if you want one portal, give them a month and give them a month after spring practice. I think that's perfect, because then you've gone to spring practice your following year. Then you have a pretty good idea of where you slot into the outlook of your team per se. And then if kids want to hit the portal then for a month, they should have a month to do it. It gives the coaches a breath. It gives the players a breath. They don't feel rushed to make a decision, which again, it's a big decision most of the time. And it condenses everything. So will this help a little bit? Yeah, but it's kind of like putting like a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. Like, it's not. It's still 2 portal sessions. Like, you're still going to have to go through it no matter what. It's 10 days instead of whatever it used to be. But I for one have always been, make one portal session, make it a month, give the kids a month to figure out what they want to do. It gives the coaches a breath. It gives everybody time to a little bit relax, and then it gives everybody a month to figure out their stuff. And I think it works for everybody. So that's my opinion.
So I think that this is an interesting switch. The one thing that makes it kind of interesting to me is that there is no like buffer period anymore. So I know before kids weren't able to just essentially like sign right away and be good to go. Like there was like a process, a part of that. With them changing this, they are able to essentially sign on the line and be good to go. I think that what also makes this interesting is it doesn't really change much in my opinion, because I think towards the back half of that portal anyway, like those when you're at day 42, 43, 44, 45, like you're not looking at kids, at least not high profile kids, that are committing to these other schools. Like a lot of that stuff is done already. And I mean, we don't want to say it, but the reality is these schools are tampering anyway. So if the kids know what school they want to go to probably before they even hit the portal. They're like, I know I'm going to have this offer, and that offer, and this is what I'm going to choose between. So I think condensing the portal really doesn't affect anything because the process is already in place. I think, to even just add on to this, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the NCAA has completely taken out the national letter of intent. Like, then that's not going to be a big thing anymore with like signing day and things like that. So I think this is really a reaction to that. Kids are able to just essentially sign, be good to go. There'll be other commitments in that, but I think the NCAA is trying to mesh all of this stuff, how they're dealing with the high school kids, dealing with transfers and things like that. They're trying to smush it all together and figure out a plan. And I think they're doing a bad job of just kind of doing it as you go. And so
NCAA? No way.
That's obviously that's their MO, but I think you have to have two portal periods just because of the kids that go to the draft, the kids that sit out of bowl games.
That's why I want to put. See, that's why I don't like the December one, because I think it encourages kids not to go to bowl games.
I'm with you.
If I'm going to transfer, then I'm not playing. Yeah, listen, I have nothing wrong with the portal in its design of what it is.
Yeah,
just push it back so everybody can be done and then make their decisions.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that.
The tampering thing is the one thing I completely agree with you. Like, and you're seeing like smaller coaches come out and be like, I knew I was losing my kicker 3 months ago because I found out Alabama was emailing them or texting them and offered them money. And nobody's doing anything about it. You want to address something, address that. Like, but it's. I mean, I'm asking.
My reason I'd say
I'm asking for a lot.
My reason I'd say for two portals is because one, you have like right after the season. I think it needs to be after the season. Like I 100% think you need to push it back no matter what. But I say two portals because there's a lot of kids, especially the high profile like freshmen, that come in January. So you get that January from like April time period, and the portal usually opens up like right after most of these schools have their spring games. So you may be like the incumbent like senior that's like in line for this starting receiver spot. But for example, use a situation like at Ohio State. Like if you're a receiver that was there, you're like, hey, Marvin Harrison just wants the NFL. Like I know there's going to be at least one spot open in this receiver rotation. And then Jeremiah Smith comes in as a true freshman and like takes that spot. And you're like, damn, like I could have hit the portal in January, but I didn't realize this kid was going to come in and be a starter. And now I'm, back in the rotation. So I think you still need to have that after April like portion open. It doesn't even have to be open that long.
That's the one I want. I want to get rid of the December one. I completely agree with you. I said, let these kids go through spring practice and go through the spring games, find out where they really are. And like you said, cool. I thought I was going to be third on the depth chart. I'm fifth. Let me go in the portal and see what's out there. That's why I think it's perfect, because then everybody's on the same page if you do it after spring. And again, don't shorten that one. Give them a month. And then it gives all the kids, and it also gives the coaches time to figure out, okay, I'm probably losing player B and C to the portal because they didn't have a good spring, or like you said, we brought Jeremiah in. Doesn't look like he's going to sit. Like he's day one starter, wide receiver number one. Let those kids then have a month and be like, all right, like we know we're losing these depth pieces, so we got to go in the portal and like let Brian Hartline go find two guys that he feels comfortable bringing into the wide receiver room that are going to be wide receivers 4 and 5. Like I think it gives everybody the same start, and it gives everybody kind of the same, for lack of a better term, everybody's on the same playing field. So I think in general, I think me and you kind of really agree. I don't like the December one. I'm all for the spring one.
I wouldn't have it in December. I would have it open up 2 days after it could open up the Friday after the national championship game. I like players being able to enter the portal then only because those kids that know for a fact they want to leave that school, it gives them the opportunity to go to their new school and practice with that team and potentially play in the spring game to showcase what they are. I think if those kids that already know they're going to be out the door, essentially you're making them waste half of their offseason with that school that they're still at, and not learning that new system kind of puts them behind in a sense before going to their new school. So I think you push that one back to after the national championship game, but I still would have 2 portals just for like those 2 reasons. But that's just me.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the portals as they were. I think my issue with it last year was the kids that were kind of forced to enter the portal and not get a chance to play with their teams in the bowl games. Malik Murphy, for example, from Texas, he even expressed his remorse for having to enter the portal when he did to transfer because he wanted to finish out a season with his boys, but because their game was after the transfer portal window closed, he had to do it before the game. Situations like that is what like. Thank you. But like this is exactly the stuff that like I like that they're shortening it, but I also like what Bill said. I also like what you said, Cottrell, is after the national championship, when the actual physical season is done, that's when all this stuff should take place. That's my opinion. I don't, like I said, maybe make it the whole month of February and maybe a week in April after the spring games. I like the 30 days. I like that it's not drawn out over 45 or longer. I like that it's kind of narrowed down. We get all the action right away. 2 different windows. So just like you said, we got the chance for the upperclassmen to kind of who've been through the season to transfer. And then we got the spring portal for all the young guns coming in to see kind of if they really fit in the system. So I like the direction they're heading. I think they still need to tinker a little bit with that December portal and move it back a little bit after the national championship. But then I think, no, not everyone will. There will never be a situation where everybody's happy, but I think that's the closest to making everybody happy we can get.
Fair.
All right, well, let's get moving, boys.
Yeah, we got hustling here. Recaps. Let's go.
Well, it's nice though because recaps will look a little different this week. I think we said instead of going like game by game, this was really the week of the upset. So I think this will be a little fun, like just kind of more general talk instead of going, through game by game. Bill, I know you have like the recaps though, like score wise, but I'm almost thinking that we should just kind of go through those, like, keep everybody updated with the scores. They haven't seen them, but then just kind of talk about like biggest upsets of the week.
Yeah, I mean, there were a number of upsets last week from Vandy, the Vanderbilt Alabama game. We got Arkansas Tennessee.
Yeah,
Arkansas Tennessee. I mean, those are absolutely great games last week. Then we can't forget the nightcap, Miami and California going past almost to midnight. Miami pulling off a 21-point comeback in the fourth quarter against California. I mean, there's so many great games from last week.
And really not to mention, like, I know they were favorited in the game, but Washington beating Michigan, I mean, it surprised me.
By 10.
You have that one, and then again, kind of like you're saying, rank versus rank. A&M Missouri. A&M destroyed Missouri.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's start with Bama. Let's start with Bama Vanderbilt. It's the big one. We'll trickle down those other ones and talk about them all for a couple minutes. I mean, we all took Bama. We all took Vanderbilt as our super dog.
Not Alex. Alex won against Ohio State. Don't give him credit.
Sorry, Alex.
I'll take the credit though. I'll take it.
Yeah, take no super dog points either, buddy.
That's right. I'll take 1-0 today, then super dog points.
But I think we all thought there was going to be a little bit of and again, that is the one thing that's different from the pros in college. Not to bring up betting, but you can almost bet on it. When you see a group of kids have a huge, absolutely like nuclear, huge win, there is going to be a fall off in their play the next week. It's just human nature. These kids go out and party that night. They don't have practice on Sunday. Come in Monday. They have everybody walk around campus. Every time you walk by somebody, you get a pat on the back. You guys are awesome. it makes your play go down. That being said, I don't think anybody had Alabama going into Vanderbilt and kind of getting beat up on, if we're being 100% honest. Huge upset. The funny thing is, I'm going to take a little bit of credit. I'm going to give most of the credit to Cottrell, but we kind of said Alabama beating Georgia was kind of in a vacuum, and take it for what it was. I thought Alabama was being underrated before, but I didn't think they were the best team in the country. I still don't. But we also said it's probably going to make Georgia flip a switch, and we're going to see what Georgia really is now. I think Georgia kind of needed that loss. That's already starting to play out. It's a shocking loss. It's a head scratcher for Kalen DeBoer and the kids. I don't think it ultimately cost them a shit ton down there, end of the road, but it could. It's an SEC loss. Again, you didn't go down Alabama's schedule and be like, oh, that's a tough trip to Vanderbilt. Like, nobody said that. You just come off Georgia, you're like, all right, you beat Vanderbilt. Like, we're in the driver's seat. Like, somebody else has got to come here and beat us to knock us out of the championship game. And now that's not the case. They're all sitting there with one loss now. Like, it's going to be all batty now. So, I think I was surprised. For me, I'll give you the one thing I was surprised of: the physicality of the game. Vanderbilt was more physical than Alabama was. They could not stop the run. Fact. Like, Alabama knew they were going to run the ball, and Vanderbilt ran the ball, and it just kept getting first down. 3 minutes off the clock. And it was funny. Like, I was kind of going back and forth between that and a couple other games, and every time I would go back on, Bama would have the ball, and they would be going right down the field, and they would get to within like 6. And I'm like, all right. Eventually, they're going to get to stop here and go down and score and win the game. It's going to be ugly. They'll take the W, go home.
Yep.
And then I would flip it back on and be like, damn, Vanderbilt's on the 20 again. Like, like they couldn't stop them. Like Vanderbilt looked like an old Nebraska juggernaut option team. Like, they couldn't stop them. That was wild to me. That was the one thing that stuck with me. Alabama, with all those 5-star kids, literally got just absolutely out physicaled and out muscled by a Vanderbilt team. Got to tip your cap to Vanderbilt, man. And again, we've all said this. Even coming into this year, we knew this wasn't going to be the Vanderbilt team that was going to go 2-10. We knew they weren't that this year. Like, they're getting better players now. Like, they're getting tougher. They're never going to compete for an SEC championship. It's just they're not designed to do that. But they weren't going to be the pushover rollover. Again, never thought they were going to beat Alabama, but it's a great win for those kids. I love that they took the goalpost down and literally, as a student body, walked them 3 miles down Broadway and dumped them into the river. Again, it's one of those cool moments, which is why I love college football more than pro football. It's stuff like that. Like, we will remember that moment 10 years from now if we're still doing the show. We will remember that moment, just like Tennessee did it last year, when they beat Georgia. It's the same thing. Like, those things are what stick in my mind and what make college football awesome. So that's what I took away from the game.
My biggest takeaway from this game was that this would not have happened under Nick Saban. And I say that in not like blaming Kalen DeBoer for the loss, but I don't think I've ever seen a Nick Saban defense not only look the way it looked in the second half versus Georgia, but then carry that over to the next game and let Vanderbilt score 40 points on them. Obviously, we know the high-powered offense that Bama has. I will say, maybe the offense doesn't look the same without Saban, but they've honestly, the last 6 quarters of football that Alabama defense has played, they've gotten utterly embarrassed. They were up 28-0 on Georgia and let them storm back in that game and take the lead. I mean, that in itself is, unforgivable. Obviously, they won the football game, so you kind of forgot about it. And if they had beat Vanderbilt, like, we wouldn't be talking about it. But like, that is not a staple of Alabama football. They always prided themselves on the defensive side of the ball. But now they're not doing that. They're more focused on offense and the explosive plays and things like that. This isn't the hard smash mouth defense that you're used to. Teams will go on the field and be intimidated by seeing Bama. After seeing what Vanderbilt just did, there's no one in the country that's going to be scared of this Alabama team moving forward.
And that's a great point.
I would remember seeing like recently, Manti Te'o just recently did an interview about the national championship game, and he was like, we were in the tunnel, Alabama like walked through first, and I looked over in my teammates' eyes, and I could just tell that they were like, no, we're not supposed to be on this field with those guys. Like they're a different animal on that side of the field. And you can just tell with this Alabama team, that is not the case. Nick Saban said it on game day last week. He was like, they're everywhere in the SEC is tough to play except Vanderbilt. And like that was a factual statement. And granted, that was bulletin board material for them. Like they even played that clip right after the game ended, which was awesome. But that's stuff that just does not happen under Nick Saban. And again, this isn't just me saying, "Oh, DeBoer's a bad coach. This is why it happened." But
No,
it almost feels like
I think we all think he's a great coach.
Yeah, it just to me it feels like Bama has lost their identity. I get it. It's DeBoer's team. He wants to establish his own identity, but the identity of Bama, as great as they've been on offense, you knew defensively what you were getting. You're going to get a whole bunch of guys that were going to just go at you for 60 minutes and punch you in the mouth repeatedly, and it was going to be about how you responded. We have not seen that from the Alabama defense the last 6 quarters that they played.
I think your point to that is spot on, because I think it was Nick Saban was always the head coach, but he always leaned defense. Like he wasn't the DC, but guys would to your point would always say when we went to practice, the offense would kind of go do their thing with the OC, and then Saban was always with the defense. And I feel like with Kalen, it's the opposite. I feel like Kalen has the DC, and then Kalen is more offensively focused, and I think he's more involved on the offensive side. And you've seen that. This is not a very vanilla Alabama offense like it has been in the past under Nick Saban. But to your point, which I think is a great point, there's no way for 60 minutes if Nick Saban was there, that defense will get run over like that. Like none. Like there's no shot it happens. So I thought that was a very, very good perspective on that whole thing.
I think the thing that stood out for me was 17-42. That's the time of possession difference that Vanderbilt had over Alabama. Vanderbilt had the ball for 42 minutes. Alabama scored about 35 points in 17 minutes. So that offense is still scary, but Vanderbilt came out with the absolute perfect game plan, running the ball 56 times. Diego Pavia only throwing 21 times, but Diego Pavia, he's someone I talked about last year during bowl season about how he was a game-changing quarterback for New Mexico State that he played for. And then he transferred to Vanderbilt. That was a move I really liked. Because I thought that he deserved to play in the SEC. I thought the Vanderbilt was a perfect spot for him. Like I said, I didn't think he was a starting caliber quarterback for like a Georgia or a Texas or something like that. But I thought he was an SEC caliber QB. He goes to Vanderbilt, beats Alabama, compares himself to Johnny Manziel, gets to meet Johnny Manziel on ESPN. This Vanderbilt team is special, man. I mean, like I said, they lost to Missouri by 1 possession. I mean, this team is one bad quarter away from only being a 1-loss Vanderbilt team, and we're talking about them a little bit differently. So I actually like what Vanderbilt's becoming. I like that they are kind of playing that spoiler role, because before, just like Nick Saban said, going to Vanderbilt was an automatic W. Not no more. Vanderbilt's here to stay. Vanderbilt's here to compete. Like I said, Vanderbilt could beat someone else going down the road that really could have impacted the college football playoffs. So I'm going to be watching them every single week from here on out.
I think it's great for the kids because I think, again, Vanderbilt, I mean, I don't know. I guess you would say Vanderbilt's a baseball school, I guess.
Yeah,
for sure.
Probably.
Those kids that are part of that will have that forever. Like I said, I started on that team that, the team that, carried the goalpost down the middle of Nashville and dumped them in the river. It's a great recruiting tool. And like you said, you almost have to hope, you hope they get bowl eligible, to beat Alabama. If that ends up helping them get their 6th win and go to a bowl game, that's how you get those programs better. It's better for the SEC. It's better if the SEC is, it's better if the SEC doesn't have that bottom feeder team. You know what I mean? We've talked about that before, in the Big Ten, it's usually Indiana or it was Rutgers or Northwestern. You don't want that team that sits down there with 1 win. The only problem you have with this is, and you're going to know this, he does this for 2 or 3 years.
He's getting poached.
Correct. There's no shot. There's no shot he's staying there. Because somebody's like, if you can build Vanderbilt in the SEC, I know you can come build my mid-tier Big Ten team, or you know what I mean, or he gets some other high profile job. I will say Vanderbilt's probably got sneaky money because it's super expensive to go there. I think it'll just be really hard for them to keep him in the next 2 or 3 years if he keeps doing this, though. And that is the part of college football. I don't want to say it sucks, but it's just a natural pecking order type thing. You know,
I will say though, like you have the opportunity, and again, it doesn't happen often. And I don't even know if Vanderbilt would be that kind of school, but like Mike Gundy's been at Oklahoma State for 20 years. Kyle Whittingham's been at Utah forever. Kirk Ferentz has been at Iowa for forever. Again, at Vanderbilt being in like the SEC, probably not going to be the case. However, I do think like sometimes like you just know like, hey, this is the culture that I need. Like Vanderbilt's different. Like clearly Vanderbilt has never prioritized football. Like that's never been like their thing where they're like, hey, we got to go out, we got to find a way to beat Bama, or we got to find a way to beat Georgia. It's like, all right, well, hey, we want to put out a decent product. If we get bowl eligible, that's a win. That's a success for our program. So I mean, I think they may have a shot to keep him. Obviously, it's going to depend on how they can hit the portal and things like that. Pavia is not going to be there forever. So, like, is this like that 1 year where they get that magical run and like catapults them, or is this going to be something where if he's there for 4 or 5 years and they just kind of teeter that line of mediocrity, but it just keeps them like relevant and it's like, hey, you can't just go to Vanderbilt and beat that team in their house like you used to. Like maybe that's something that stays in line for him.
See, the only reason I don't think that happens is because at some point, this guy obviously has an agent or a lawyer or somebody. At some point, if this continues for the next 2 years, like, yo, you got to cash in on this. And that's where the discussions happen. Like, what is a better job, Vanderbilt or Iowa?
Iowa.
Correct. Iowa. Utah or Vanderbilt?
Utah.
Oklahoma State or Vanderbilt?
Oklahoma State.
That's what I'm saying. You're going. Like, you have to go. Like, if your aspirations, and I believe the guy's a younger guy, so if that really is your aspiration to continue to coach and get better, I think at some point, as hard as it is to probably leave your kids, even though probably half of them will probably come with them, but because that's what happens now. But if your aspirations as a person in life are to continue to coach and go up the ranks, you have to leave. And again, I do believe Vanderbilt probably has the money or the resources to try to keep him, but it's like I think you worded it perfectly. Again, Cottrell's on point, Alex. You might be in trouble today. It's are you happy being the feel good 6-6 guy at Vanderbilt and being like, I'm the guy that, like you said, for lack of a better term, brought them back to mediocrity, or do I want to be the guy that wants to go challenge myself and go to Iowa and see if I can get Iowa back to competing with Ohio State, Michigan, and Oregon, or go to Oklahoma State and win a Big 12 title? Like, if you have that internal fire and competitive streak as you have to be a good coach, you're taking one of those jobs and going. Like Vanderbilt's never winning the SEC, and that's no shot at them. But like this is like to your point. Like if they're 6-6 every year, like that's going to be the pinnacle of that football program. And there's nothing wrong with that. That I don't think the most casual fans won't understand how big of a deal that is for Vanderbilt to be 6-6 every year, because that means they're probably winning 3 to 4 SEC games every single year. Then that's a big deal. That's a huge step for them. They're never going to have that 10-2 magical season though. Like that's just not out there. You know what I mean? So it's like I just feel like he would leave, and I wouldn't blame him. And I know people in Vanderbilt will probably be really pissy, but it's just a culture. It's the nature of college football.
Hey, you say Vanderbilt going 6-6, but I look at their schedule and I think they could be going bowling this year. They have to get 3 more wins, and 3 of those games are against Kentucky, they have Kentucky, Ball State, Auburn, and South Carolina are their remaining non-ranked opponents. And then obviously they have Tennessee, LSU, and Texas. But those 4 unranked games,
Kentucky's not going to be an easy game. They'll beat Ball State, obviously.
Yeah, Ball State and South Carolina, I think, are wins. And then I think the 2 really question marks are Kentucky and Auburn. Yeah,
Auburn,
and they're both on the road. But they're both on the road. They're in Auburn. They're in Kentucky. That's what makes those games a little tough. So I think this team could be a bowl eligible team. So they have some tough teams coming up though. That last part of their schedule: Texas, Tennessee.
South Carolina's a sneaky good school. Like they're good on defense. Their offense is their offense is kind of stinky, but they have a really good identity on defense. So I mean, depending on what Lenore Sellers shows up in that game, I mean, I think that could be a really good game that week.
All right, let's get in. I think there's. I mean, Arkansas, Tennessee. I think we have to talk about real quick, and then we can go over the other games really quickly, and that'll give us a solid, half hour,
Just an
40
hour.
minutes to
Yeah.
get into previews. So, Tennessee. I don't want to say this has been coming, but I feel like their play, especially offensively, is kind of leveled out. Went to Arkansas, and again, another point to the SEC, another team that's trying to rebound and kind of get back to the days when they used to win 8 games a year. Tennessee went to Arkansas, played a team with a decent defense, couldn't get their offense rolling. Shock loss, another team that kind of lost firm control of their own destiny. So Nico didn't look great. They had a horrible time. I don't know if either one of you guys watched this game, but they couldn't really run the ball. And Arkansas's front four was in Nico's face all night. Still a really surprise upset for me. I thought Tennessee. I thought this game again. You travel in the SEC at night, no matter where you go, except Vanderbilt, according to Nick Saban. It's it's a tough environment. Any SEC game on the road is tough, but I didn't think that was going to be a game to the point where I really thought Tennessee was coming out with a loss, and they did. So. Again, another game that kind of just like, hey, Georgia's kind of back in the driver's seat again. Your guys' thoughts on the game, reactions, what do we see from Tennessee this week, so forth and so on.
The driver's seat comment is the one that I'm like hanging on myself here, because if you look at the schedules, if Texas takes care of business against Georgia, I think Texas and Texas A&M still play later on in the year. But if Texas takes care of business against Georgia, at the moment, Texas A&M still doesn't have a conference loss. So, like, they're in a great spot. So is Texas. Like, I think this can turn into an absolute shit show because you're going to have a ton of teams potentially with just one loss in the conference. So, I think Tennessee definitely screwed themselves in the sense of controlling their own destiny, per se. I think with Tennessee still having, I know for a fact they still have to face Georgia. I don't know who else is remaining on their schedule, but
Bama and Georgia are the two.
Yeah, so we looked at it before the season, and we're like, hey, Tennessee's going to have an outside shot of potentially making the playoff. Well, if you lose to Bama and you lose to Georgia, if they put up the performance they put up against Arkansas, I think those are 2 losses, and I don't think it's going to be close. And I think with Nico being a freshman, Georgia and Bama's defense are going to get after him. But, with that said, this is kind of one of those inexcusable losses. Like for Bama, obviously the loss to Vanderbilt was awful, but they already had a Georgia win in their back pocket. So it's like, hey, one of those tough teams that we needed to beat. Essentially, if they would have lost to Georgia, they would still, be a one-loss team at this moment. So they had a built-in loss or like some wiggle room there. Tennessee hasn't afforded themselves that ability. They've beaten a decent Oklahoma team, but with Georgia and Bama still on the horizon, if you take 2 losses there, you went from being one of the favorites to, before last week, being one of the favorites to potentially win a national championship to now maybe even being on the outside looking in. So I think it's a team. Yeah. So
and when I said Georgia, the driver's seat, I think that's kind of what I meant, more like kind of controls their destiny. I should have worded it that way.
Yeah.
If they go to Texas and win, they do play Tennessee. If they win, Tennessee, like you said, before they lost to Arkansas, had a kind of built-in like crap week somewhere, and now they don't have that anymore. Like they have to beat Georgia now. So SEC is gonna be rough, man, down the stretch. I'm telling you that is the beauty of all this. The last, I would say, November. I mean, and it's crazy to say that because it's really only like 3 weeks away. But you get into like first week of November on, not only the SEC but even the Big Ten. Coming down the stretch, it is going to be insane. Like it is going to be nuts every week. There is no room for error. You're going to have teams fighting for, obviously for conference championships, but then like Cottrell said, you can't drop, Tennessee drops those 2 games. They went from crap. Like a week ago, we thought we were going to be in the SEC championship game, and now selection night, we're going to be sitting there like chewing on fingernails to see if we even get in. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what we all wanted. We have it now. I love it. It's going to be a lot of fun for the 3 of us. I can't wait. But that being said, Alex, get in here. Do your thing on Arkansas.
Well, here's the thing: is I think we're starting to see who Tennessee truly is. They came out of the season. They came out at the start of the season really smacking people in the mouth, 51-10 against NC State, 71-0 against Kent State, and then they're kind of really grabbing everybody's attention. And then they went to Oklahoma, and Nico played his first true road game. He only had one touchdown. He was sacked 3 times. But realistically, that's kind of what I want to focus on is that offensive line. In the first 3 games of the season, 0 sacks. The last 2 weeks, he's been sacked 7 times. His completion percentage is going downhill fast. Starting the season at 69.6%. Last week, he finished at just over 50% at 58%. These SEC defenses are not Kent State's defense. These SEC defenses are not NC State's defenses. The SEC is where the big boys play. No. This is just who they play. They could have played freaking San Jose State and won 71-0.
I'm just saying. I find it a little.
Now you're just instigating.
You said Kent State, not me. You could have picked any other shitty MAC school. You were like Kent State.
They played Kent State. That's why I had to pick them. But what I'm saying
it was a stray. I'm just saying. I felt it was intentional. Just keep going.
Is that Nico is a guy who needs to play at home. So far on the road, he has struggled, and that's something I said against Oklahoma that I think is his first road test would be a struggle for him, and it kind of was. Then they went to Arkansas, and he had an even worse game. The only real savior for Tennessee is that they only have 2 more road games on their schedule. They have 4 total road games this year. And they have 2 more road games, one against Georgia, the other one against Vanderbilt. So we're going to see if Vanderbilt really is an easy place to play. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas, they're going to play everybody tough this season. They said that's a team that's definitely a bowl team. And listen, I talked about Taylor Green last week. I actually called Arkansas covering the spread on this game. But Taylor Green is something special. I think that he's going to be fantastic the rest of the year. And I think Arkansas is going to, at a 4-2 record, you see they're playing LSU next week at home. That's going to be a great game. Like you guys said, SEC is going to be an absolute shit show going down the stretch, and I'm all here for it.
All right, and the other game I think we have to touch on real quick, because Coach Cottrell even mentioned it. I think it's A&M Missouri. A&M had that early stumble beginning of the year against Notre Dame. And, I think Connor Wiggman just had a really bad game. They've looked really good since then. And to Cottrell's point that he brought up earlier, they don't have an SEC loss yet. And we previewed them at the beginning of the year. They have one of the softer schedules in the SEC. They're probably going to, again, unless they drop the ball somewhere they shouldn't, they're probably going to factor into this race coming down the stretch as well. And on the other side of that, I think we kind of finally saw, I don't want to say what Missouri was. They were kind of in the, hey, they're begging to get beat category. I think we all felt that. I didn't think they were going to lose 41-10. They got embarrassed in College Station. But I think we see a kind of pretty firm ceiling of what they are now. How do you think they factor in coming down the stretch? And where do we think, honestly, where do you think A&M's ceiling is right now?
So for me, I mean, I'll be quick here because I kind of, had a feeling how the game would go last week. I didn't think it'd be like as much of a blowout as it was, but the biggest takeaway from watching that game was the fact that Luther Burden is not a factor in the offense right now. I don't know what's going on with Missouri and why it looks so much different than how it did last year, but they cannot connect Brady Cook and Luther Burden. And with that being the case, and that's your best receiver, if that's not connecting, your offense isn't going to be anything. I get it. You lost your running back to the NFL last year, but you bring back a guy who we thought was going to be one of the best receivers in the country, and there's just absolutely no connection there. Texas A&M completely dominated them on both sides of the football. They were getting after Brady Cook, making him uncomfortable. And then on the flip side of things, Connor Weckman had a very impressive day. He was very efficient with the football, and they were also able to run the ball very efficiently with Le'Veon Moss. So I think this A&M team, their ceiling is the SEC championship game. If that's the question that you want to ask, I mean, I think that's where they can go. I believe they only have, big game wise, and they have Texas and they have LSU. So I think this is a team that, in a sense, just like some other teams that we've talked about, really controls their own destiny here. And I believe I saw a stat that said A&M has the second or third easiest remaining SEC schedule. So that is also in their favor.
So they got Mississippi State left. They have LSU at home. Go to South Carolina. That's New Mexico State, I guess. Jesus Christ. Go to Auburn, and then their last game is at home against Texas. So, yeah, I mean, they win everything else. That Texas A&M game might not even matter for them at the end of the year. If they're rolling that game undefeated, they might already be in at that point.
Yep.
Look, man, I think we just saw that Missouri is going to be a 4-loss team this year. Like I said, we didn't even have them on Eliminator Mountain until a couple of weeks ago. None of us batted an eyelash. None of us really took Missouri quite too seriously this season, I don't believe. And to Luther Burden, he was the team leading receiver this last week, but it was his best game of the season, and then he only had 86 yards. Noel only had 30 yards on the ground, and Brady Cook completed less than 50% of his passes. I mean, this team did not look – they looked like they had not prepped all week, and they rolled out of bed on Saturday morning and said, hey, let's go play some college football. I think that'd be fun. And A&M looked like they prepped for the correct team all week long, and Acton really took care of business. I think A&M had more to prove in this game because of that loss to Notre Dame. We weren't really quite sure, is Texas A&M for real? Are they with Connor Wegman's first game back? Like, what's kind of offense going to look like? I mean, they were talking at the beginning of the game is, will he even start this game? And we got our answer as soon as the game started, and they kind of rolled the entire way. So it was a great game. I think I saw a lot from Texas A&M that gives me hope for the rest of the season. And as for Missouri, there's a reason they dropped from 9 to 21. They looked absolutely atrocious. And like I said, I think this is a 4-loss team when it's all said and done.
And to that point with A&M, if Connor Wegman is playing that kind of football, the sky is going to be the limit for that team. That's the Connor Wegman who I was expecting to come out in the first game against Notre Dame. And I get it. Missouri doesn't have the same defense as Notre Dame had, but it's not even what he was doing. It's the poise of how he was doing it. Going through his progressions, checking the run plays, taking essentially what the defense was giving him every time he could. I think that's really what makes him a good player. And then even just getting out on the move a little bit when he needs to. So if he's playing like that and the offense gets that kind of rhythm, Texas A&M is a team that could beat a lot of teams in the country. Not saying they're legit national championship contenders, but I would say that that's a team that can be a tough out for literally anybody in the country.
If I could throw a comparison out real quick.
It's definitely nobody you want to see in the first round of the playoff. I'll promise you that, and especially if they're going to host somebody, which it looks like they probably would. They get a night game, Kyle Field. No thanks.
Yeah, I think if we could compare Connor Wegman's performance last week to anybody, I think the closest he looked was to Quinn Ewers, the way he commanded the offense, the way he was able to use his legs when he needed to, not force things down the field and be smart with the ball. Honestly, like I said, I'm not saying he is Quinn Ewers, but he looked very much Quinn Ewers-esque last week, and that's the type of quarterback you want running your program, is a program that's smart with the football, can run with his legs when he has to, doesn't force it, and make smart decisions. So that was a great. I think those couple weeks off for him, I think allowed him to kind of get his head right after that Notre Dame loss, and I think that this is the Connor Wegman we're going to see the rest of the year, which makes A&M scary.
He's a 5-star kid. He had an offer in his pocket from everybody in the country. So I think he's just one of those kids that took a little bit longer to kind of develop and start to figure it out. But I think you can see in his play now he's starting to figure it out. And to Cottrell's point, if and even yours, Alex, if he starts to play like Quinn Ewers or just starts to play, good, aggressive, but safe football and doesn't turn the football over, A&M's going to be a problem. They will be a factor down the stretch, both in the SEC and nationally. So, all right, any other games you guys want to touch on from last week?
No,
none of them.
Anybody else
this week?
Talk about during Eliminator.
Yeah.
So. And plus, we're talking about USC in previews, so I think I'll bring up a couple things about their last game during that moment, but nothing really too crazy to go.
All right, Lemon. All right, yes, we got like 30 minutes, so let's get into previews. Where are we starting? I think okay. We're going to go to our appointment, which is fine. Perfect. All right, Arizona at BYU, Provo, Utah. Alex should know where it is because I blatantly told him not to pick against teams going in here. See if you learned his lesson. I think this one's going to end just like the way the other one ended. I think Arizona is coming off a win where we didn't really, I don't think anybody thought they were going to beat Utah. Utah's now lost 2 in a row. They lost again last night to Arizona State. We didn't really get a chance. Great game. Didn't really get a chance to get into it, but Utah's kind of spiraling right now. BYU, Provo, it's just one of those places that kind of has, I don't want to say it's magic, but like just it's a tough place to go win if they're good. I think BYU's -3.5, -3, somewhere around there, as of right now.
2.5.
I like BYU 2.5. There you go, went down. Arizona, people are betting Arizona. I still like BYU. I think BYU comes out. I think it's a very good football game. I think it's close. I don't think it's gonna be a blowout or anything like that, but I think BYU in that ground attack, I like them to come out over Arizona.
So for me, this game kind of scares me a little bit. That spread only being 2.5, and BYU is 5-0, and Arizona had a bad loss last week to Texas Tech. I think I say bad loss because it was a home game. Texas Tech is actually having a really good start to the season so far. I think they're 5-1 or 6-1, something like that.
Yep.
But with that said, for me, the people that control the spread are basically saying that if this game was on a neutral field, that they think Arizona would win the football game. And so with that being said, I get it. BYU is a tough place to play, and it's not an easy place to just go into and win. But with that said, I'm rolling with Arizona. If Arizona is the better football team here and they're coming off of a loss, I mean, last week was a classic, like a literally picture perfect definition of a letdown game. You go in, you beat a Utah team who a lot of people were expecting to win the Big 12 this year, and then the following week you lay a dud at home to Texas Tech. So I'm rolling with Arizona here. I think they're going to come into the game, very focused, especially coming off of that loss there. And for whatever reason, Vegas is telling me that Arizona's the better football team. So I'm rolling with them here.
Well, here's a couple things that's interesting. Right now, BYU's leading rusher is the quarterback, Jake, Retzlaff, I believe is how you pronounce his name. But today, they're getting last year's leading rusher, LJ Martin, back. He's been out since week 2 with an injury. He's finally back. He's going to take some pressure off of Jake Retzlaff in the pocket, actually having a good running back in the backfield with him. And BYU, like Bill said, they are scary at home. Here's a little fun fact for you. I think BYU may have made a mistake in this game, making it a day game. You want to know why? Because over their last 12 at-home day games, they are 1-11 outright. BYU is. I think maybe that is a little bit of a telling fact. Now, again, I'm not really a trend. I don't really believe in trends. I think that trends are meant to be broken. But 1-11 during day games at home, that's a number I can't ignore. Noah Fafita has not looked great since week 1. He has 6 interceptions this season, including 1 in every single game Arizona has played. Honestly, Arizona's defense has been the forefront of this team that's really been able to hold them in games this season, or else they haven't scored over 23 points in a game since week 1. And when we talked about this Arizona team, we talked about their offense, Noah Fafita, Tate McMillan on the outside. This offense is nasty. They have not been living up to their hype the last few weeks. And I am picking this game, so I'm not going to give away too much. But like I said, with BYU starting running back in business, the game at BYU in Provo, this pick is going to be a doozy, but we're going to save it for here a little bit later.
All right. Moving on next to Kansas State of Colorado. I think this is a very intriguing game. I think, not really necessarily a rivalry game, but I think a game that's kind of, believe it or not, if it's possible for the Buffaloes to kind of float under the radar here this weekend with all the other games going on. This is a big game for both of these teams, like huge game for both of these teams. If Colorado could pull this out at home at Boulder, again, not an easy place to play, great home field advantage, great stadium. They're going to be ranked next week, and B, they are firmly in the conversation for winning the Big 12. Oklahoma State already has 2 or 3 losses. Utah has 2 now. This would be Kansas State's second. This gets really interesting, and it's going to get even more of a hoopla situation if Colorado is in the lead of the Big 12 coming down the stretch with Deion Sanders and all the press that team's going to get. This is a tricky spot for Kansas State. schedule makers did them no favors this year. They've had a bunch of tricky games on the road. We joke about the BYU thing. The reason that's a joke is because Kansas State went in there and got beat. Are we on the path to a Colorado BYU Big 12 championship game? Because that would be nuts. I promise you, no one picked that at the beginning of the year. No one. And if you did, I want to see your bet slip because I'm going to call you a liar until I see it. Avery Johnson. I feel like Kansas State is going to be able to move the football very well against Colorado. I feel like Avery Johnson is really kind of settled in now. He's got his feet underneath him. He looks like he's more comfortable, and more control of the offense. They've been more efficient the last couple of weeks. I feel like their defense is going to get some stops somewhere. This is tough for me because I never lack confidence for what Colorado is going to do offensively, even though their line still stinks. Shore and Travis Hunter and company are still going to put points on the board. They just are. They're just too good. I just don't know how many stops that defense is going to get, and that's where I'm stuck here. Not a big spread. I have to go. I have to go Kansas State here. I have to go Kansas State until I see Colorado beat a team like Kansas State, and then maybe I could get more on that bandwagon about them actually beating upper tier teams. But until I see it, I'm going to go with Avery Johnson and company.
Well, Alex, I'll let you go next here because I know K-State's your baby.
Man, I love K-State. Avery Johnson, like I said, early pick for Heisman hopeful. He hasn't quite put up the numbers I was hoping he would, but still a fantastic leader. And Kansas State is going to take care of business today. And here's a couple things that I really want to focus on. Colorado State, their defense has been playing exceptionally well compared to last season. They forced 9 turnovers in the last 3 games. Like, they really are ball hawking on the defensive side of the ball. Here's the thing. On the offensive side, that's where things we talk about where they're the most successful on the offensive side of the ball. But Shedeur Sanders is the 3rd most sacked quarterback in the country. And they are going up against a Kansas State team that leads the Big 12 in sacks. So this is not a recipe for success that I'm seeing for Colorado. The last time they played a team as physical and as tough in the trenches as Kansas State was Nebraska. And what happened in that Nebraska game? 28-10. Nebraska win, Colorado lost. So the only reason I think this game is going to be a little bit closer is because they are playing in Boulder. But I think also ultimately Kansas State is going to run the ball all day long. They'll have 0 issues moving the ball on the ground between Avery Johnson, Giddens, and yeah, I said, what's the spread on this game right now? You said it was
3.5.
K-State 3.5. Kansas State.
Okay, I think K-State does cover, but I think it's a 6-point game. I think we're looking closer to about 24-18 on the final score, but I think Kansas State, Avery Johnson take care of business. I think it's a Shedeur Sanders. I think they're actually up 2 scores in the 4th quarter. Shedeur Sanders does what he does and brings the game within a touchdown. But I think that K-State penetration is going to keep him running for his life all day. Nebraska had 6 sacks on this Colorado offensive line. I think K-State beats that with 7 today. And I think that Shedeur Sanders is not going to have a great day due to that fact. And Travis Hunter, obviously, he's going to have a great day offensively. But I think that because of that, they're going to run the ball. That ball hawk defense that Colorado has, they're not going to force any turnovers today. And Kansas State's going to be smart with the ball and come out with that 6-point win today.
So this game is one that kind of confused me a bit because, to your point, Alex, and even you, Bill, Colorado got dominated in the trenches by Nebraska. Absolutely manhandled. And that was, I believe, week 2 of the regular season. And it almost feels like an eternity ago because of how Colorado has looked these past few weeks. And I look at a team like Colorado, their last game that they played was against UCF. And, UCF, granted, they're no world beaters or, you don't have high expectations for them. But before the year, I thought that UCF team is going to be a 8 or 9 win team and potentially be competing to go to the Big 12 championship game. And right now, that UCF team is 4th in the country in terms of rushing. They're the 4th best rushing team at the moment statistically in the entire country. And what that Colorado defense was able to do was really shut them down. I get it. They had some success in the rushing game. Like, they averaged, I believe it was like 4 yards a carry as a team. But RJ Harvey, they didn't give RJ Harvey a chance to really go off there. And that UCF offense is built similar to K-State, where they have that athletic quarterback where they try to get you in the read option. They have quarterback design running plays, and KJ Jefferson didn't have a great game either. Like both guys ultimately finished with, around like 70 yards or so in that one, but Colorado did a great job of controlling the line of scrimmage in that game, and that really surprised me. So I feel like maybe this Colorado team has turned a corner. Maybe they figured out something defensively about how to stop the run. Because in my opinion, I think that had been their biggest kryptonite so far throughout the Deion Sanders era, was that they couldn't establish the run and they couldn't stop the run. And you have to do one or the other when you're in tight, close games when you want to win those games. And the other thing is that last year, Colorado couldn't win those tight games. This year, they found ways to win those games, at least so far. So with that being said, I think this is going to be a high-scoring affair here. But ultimately, I'm going with the quarterback that I trust more. I'm rolling with Shador. I'm rolling with the Buffs in this game. It may be a walk-off field goal, but I think it being a night game in Boulder, I think it means something. And especially, granted, both teams are coming off of a bye here, which, again, to the NCAA schedule makers, I appreciate you guys doing that, making it even across the board there. But I think they're going to come into this game and be prepared. So I think you see a high-scoring affair here, but ultimately, I am rolling with the Buffs.
Damn, we're just going to be opposite sides all day today, Control. I see how it's going to go. I see how it's going to go.
All right, up next, number 4 team in the country. That is just not accurate. Penn State at USC. Los Angeles, home game for USC. USC coming off just almost an unforgivable loss to Minnesota. Penn State, another win last week. Didn't look super impressive yet again. They're just getting the job done right now. This is a tough game. I thought this was going to be a tougher game all year. And my opinion on it hasn't changed. I think Penn State going cross country. USC's kind of, I don't want to say in desperation mode, but their backs are kind of up against the wall now. They have 2 Big Ten losses already. I don't think this is a game Penn State can play mediocre in, though. I think they've gotten away with it for certain other games. I think if they play that way against USC today, I think they lose. Can't go out and have a first quarter where they don't do anything. I think Miller Moss will put points on the board with USC, especially at home. Nicer weather. Use that speed that he has on the outside and hopefully get their running game going. I think they're really going to push Penn State today. I really think this game comes down to the last 2 minutes. I don't think this is a walkthrough for Penn State at all. Beginning of the season, this game was 11.5. It's all the way down to, I think, 2.5, 3 right now.
Yeah.
It's there's a lot of money that's come in on USC, and obviously that's because USC is admittedly so. We've already talked about it. Way better than we thought they were going to be this year. Defense is way better. But if Penn State can't get that running game going, like other teams have against USC, and kind of play off of that, I think this is a really interesting game. I really do. I'll say Penn State pulls it out because I just don't think USC has that kind of dagger weapon that they can go to. But I think this is an absolute battle. Like I said, I think this is a game until the last 2 minutes. I think it's in doubt until then.
USC has absolutely pigeonholed themselves here with that loss last week to Minnesota. That's an inexcusable loss here, and that is your second loss of the season. I think you could have got away with a Michigan loss and then either losing to Penn State or Notre Dame. But if you want to make the college football playoff, the rest of your schedule is must win. You can see how much the AP poll didn't like that loss last week. They went from being the number 11th ranked team in the country to going completely unranked. I thought that this USC team's offense would be, clicking on all cylinders and things like that. And, 2 weeks ago, I had even said, it kind of came up on the show that this was a USC team that looks completely different than what you thought it would, and that this game would even look potentially different than what you thought it was. If USC had won last week, this could be a potential top 10 matchup between two teams. This could be number 4 versus number 10 or number 9. And I think on the surface, it's still, which is why we're talking about it, it's still a really good game. But I have so much more confidence in Penn State winning this football game now after that showing from USC last week. I think Penn State's defense will be able to control the line of scrimmage and really get after Miller Moss and make him uncomfortable there. And I also think on the flip side of things that Drew Aller and Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, like those guys are going to be able to move the ball against that USC defense. Against the USC defense. USC last week was very uncomfortable. Miller Moss threw 2 bad interceptions last week. And I think Penn State's going to do more of that. They're going to attack them, see a lot of man coverage, and I think Penn State's going to have their way in this one.
So USC hasn't beaten a top 5 opponent since 2017. Trivia question. Y'all know who that team was?
Probably Penn State.
It was Penn State. Bill, you are the trivia winner on this week's episode of Coast to Coast. Congratulations. No, but like I said, USC hasn't beaten a top 5 opponent since 2017. All right. And I wasn't sure what the recipe was to beat this USC team was, because that Michigan game was really kind of cattywampus, and then you got this Minnesota win. But I think I figured out cattywampus. That's the word of the day. Thank you, sir. Now, I think I figured out the word of the day. I think I figured out the recipe to beat this USC team, and that's running the ball 40 times or more. USC has 2 losses this season. Michigan ran the ball 46 times. Minnesota ran the ball 40 times. You know what Penn State does better than most of the country? Run the ball. They've reached 40 rushes or more in 3 of the 5 games this season, and one of the games they didn't, they ran 37 times. Penn State's offense is the recipe to beat USC. Obviously, USC's offense is looking fantastic. Their defense is a little bit better than last season, and they've showed that all year. They were ranked as number 11 last week? Or number 9? Number 11 last week. Number 11 last week. So that loss to Minnesota knocked them all the way out of the rankings. When I look at the stats from last week and that game against Michigan, the 2 losses, I see a team that's committing a lot of penalties, committing turnovers, and can't stop the run. Like I said, Minnesota averaged only 4.8 runs per carry, but ran the ball 40 times. So they completely control the clock, completely control the line of scrimmage, honestly showing USC what y'all have been telling me, which what is Big Ten football. It's, tough, ground and pound, in your face, punch you in the mouth type football. And that's what Minnesota did to USC. And the difference is that USC, during part of that game, was trying to match Minnesota's intensity on that line of scrimmage and trying to play into their game. For someone as ingenious of a coach as USC has, their last 3 possessions against Minnesota, interception, 3 and out, interception. Where is this creativity on the offensive side of the ball that's supposed to get them winning these games late? Yes, they're at home. Yes, they're, like I said, there's only 3.5 point underdogs right now. But Penn State's going to run the hell out of the ball. They're not going to let Drew Aller. They said they're not going to let Drew Aller win the game. They're going to let the Nick Singleton and Katron Allen in the backfield win them the game this week. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think Penn State runs all over USC. I think they run the ball over 44 times and controls the line of scrimmage, controls the time of possession. And I think USC and Miller Moss makes a mistake late in the 4th quarter that costs them the game, and USC kind of ends their season today.
Sounds like that is going to be the trend of the day then. Big Ten beating up on Pac-12 has-beens that were overrated.
Well, hey, you can't be according to you, we're not. We can't be has-beens because we never were. So according to you, you're not talking about us. So played yourself. Who's next?
You have been in the Pac-12 though. Not there anymore.
We're going to show you what Pac-12 football was all about today, baby. Speed.
We're not there yet. Let's finish up here.
We're itching, man. We're itching. We're so close. But Alex, before we get there and before we do this, because it's on my mind and I don't want to forget it, before we go to war, I did want to bring up, because I forgot to bring it up when we were doing recaps.
Mm-hmm.
We were spot on with the SMU game. They were 7-point dogs and we picked them out right.
That's true.
I wanted to give us props on that one because
that's true.
We were on it.
That's true, man. SMU is looking good this year. I know we're not talking about them right now, but that's true. We were on that SMU train. Bill, you got to hop on, bro. Hop on board, bro. Choo choo. No? Okay. Bill's like, no, let's go.
He said no.
He said no.
No. This is the battle of the coaches that don't win big games. So somebody's going to win. It's going to be very interesting. Lane
No.
Kiffin, Ole Miss.
Now, someone might not win. Someone's going to lose. Someone's going to lose. That's the
That's
way
true.
to look at this
True.
game.
If I had a bet, I would say one of these coaches more likely blows the game than the other one wins it. Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebs, heading into LSU, Bayou Bengals, the Tigers. Night game, Death Valley, hostile environment. I'm still going with Ole Miss here. I think Ole Miss is the better team. I think LSU is beating mediocre teams. Their ranking's not moving. They have nothing. They've beat nobody to impress me at all. I think Ole Miss bounces back after kind of a crappy week last week. Not the best performance, still a win, but I think Jackson Dart and company get it going tonight. I like Ole Miss to go into LSU and come out with a very rare night game victory over LSU.
Alex?
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss leads the nation in tackles for loss with 63. Jackson Dart has thrown for 275 yards or more in every single game this year, and they face a pass defense that's ranked 92nd in the country. Ole Miss is going to run wild all over LSU today. I don't care where they're playing. They could play in a freaking sandlot in the Arizona desert for all I care. Ole Miss is going to run all over this game. See, LSU LSU's best chance to win this game is to have a balanced attack. Even Kelly said it. Even Brian Kelly said it in the media yesterday that the best way to win a game like this, if it's a tough opponent, is to keep it balanced. Problem is, LSU is one of the bottom third teams in the country in rushing yards per game, so they can't keep it balanced. And so Ole Miss is going to run all over LSU. This is not going to be a game. I think it's close in the first half. I think Ole Miss wins by 14 plus.
I think that this is a game that has been circled on this LSU Tigers team for a year now. They played a game last year, which was one of the games of the year, in my opinion. It was an absolute shootout between Jaden Daniels and Jackson Dart, and Ole Miss ultimately came out on top. I think this is a game that LSU ultimately does win. I think this is going to be more. You're going to see another shootout happen in this one. But the big thing for me is that Jackson Dart's favorite weapon, Trey Harris, is questionable. Now, I do think he's going to play, but I think that injury concern there for one of the top receivers in the country, that's going to play a factor into it. I think LSU is going to be able to move the ball against that Ole Miss defense, and I think the home field advantage of being in Death Valley playing at night will play a factor in this game. I think LSU's offense will build off of that hype, and I think they're going to be able to move the ball effectively. I see this being a higher scoring game. I'm going LSU like a 40, 41, 37 kind of ball game. I think it's going to be really high scoring, really entertaining. And ultimately, I think this may end up being the game of the evening.
I think it's gonna be a good game. I do. I agree with you. I think it's gonna be a very competitive game. Again, great environment. And one of these teams is going to keep themselves in the race, and the other one is going to kind of fall back into that kind of second tier a little bit. But this is most nights. This is kind of the can't miss game, but not tonight. SEC is going to take a back seat to the Big Ten tonight. But we have one more game to go to, I believe.
Yep.
We do. The Red River Rivalry. Number 1, Texas. Gets number 18, Oklahoma. Going to play in Dallas, Texas.
Am I mistaken? Didn't this game used to be a noon kick game?
Used to be.
Yeah.
Used to always be a noon kick.
What are we doing?
I was watching On 3, and one of the guys was like, they missed an opportunity. Like I want it to be 12 p.m. kickoff, and they totally messed it up this year.
They would be the only show in town. There's no, like Bama and South Carolina is going to be your noon like premier game. This would have been the game. What are we doing?
I would assume television kind of got their hands into this somehow. Because this used to be this was every year. This was on ABC at noon. This is what you started your day with every year they played, and it was great. It was always great start. It's 11 a.m. kick out there, but obviously they have the whole fair and all that stuff going on. So I mean, that place is always ready to go. Now is this at the Cowboy Stadium or is it still at the Cotton Bowl?
Oh, I think it's still at the Cotton Bowl.
All right, at least they didn't screw that up. But Listen, I'll be consistent with this. I think Texas is going to win. I just think they're the better football team. That being said, 14.5 for a rivalry, and I've mentioned this the last 2
It's
weeks,
now
both
17,
on this show. 17?
It's now 17.
Jesus.
It jumped up 2.5 points overnight.
Is somebody not playing for Oklahoma?
Their starting 5 receivers are not playing.
Oh,
And they're starting. They're not starting Jackson Arnold. They're starting the other guy. Can't remember his name right now, but
he doesn't deserve to start right now anyway.
Michael Hawkins.
Yes,
Hawkins.
thank you. Yep, they're starting him.
All right, so a lot of money's coming on. 17 is still a lot for a rivalry game like this, but knowing all that stuff, I knew there was a chance none of those wide receivers were going to play. I didn't know they officially had all been ruled out.
Their top one is still questionable, but 2 through 5 have all been ruled out.
Yeah, they're in trouble then. This game might get ugly then. I don't know. The only thing I will say about this rivalry is it is one of the true rivalries in the sense that we've had games like this where one team comes in 1, 2, 3, 5, the other one's like 20th, and the 20 seed goes in and wins by 2 touchdowns. And it's happened both ways with both schools. It is a true rivalry in that sense. You get shocking results out of this rivalry all the time. That being said, I don't think we're getting one today, especially with that news being official. Texas's defense, I think, is too solid. They're going to play a lot of base, probably keep Oklahoma in front of them, get some pressure on quarterbacks for Oklahoma, either have it be Hawkins, Arnold, whoever the hell goes back there. And then Quinn, I think, is just going to come out and do his thing. So Oklahoma's defense, I think, while it's been good this year, definitely a lot better than last year. Brett Venables, we know, is a defensive coach, cut his teeth as a DC at Clemson. I think they're going to have to play a lot of bend, don't break. I think that's going to lead to a lot of long possessions for Texas, but I think Texas is going to pay them off. And when they do, it's really going to get Oklahoma out of their game flow and what they want to do or try to do to stay in this game. I like Texas today. I like Texas big today.
I'm against you on this one. I think Texas ultimately wins the football game, but I think this is a tight game. This is an Oklahoma team where not much has changed from last year in terms of like their identity. And they went out last year and they ultimately won this football game. Granted, the quarterbacks have changed in this one. Dylan Gabriel is no longer in Oklahoma, and I won't even take a shot at him because it'd just be too easy to. But I'll save that for the next one. But I think Oklahoma's strategy here is control the time of possession, keep that Texas offense off the field, run the ball, let Michael Hawkins, have pace and control that offense. And you want slow, methodical drives. Is bad and unpredictable as the Oklahoma offense has been, the defense has actually been pretty good, and that's always going to be a Brent Venables staple. So I think in this game here, especially with Quinn still getting used to being back from that injury and getting back, accustomed to the offense, I think this is your opportunity to do that in this one. And it's a rivalry game. These two schools absolutely hate each other. And when that is in play, you never know what's going to happen. You talk about it in this game specifically, like 5-20, whatever the case may be. I've seen it firsthand in Ohio State, Michigan, where, Michigan may be unranked and they still beat a Ohio State team that's really good, or vice versa. So in the rivalry games, literally anything can happen. Ultimately, I think Texas win because they are the better football team. But I think this is a close game for absolutely no reason at all.
I think you couldn't be any more wrong than that, Cottrell. I think Texas could kick a field goal on all their red zone possessions today and purposely not score a touchdown, and they'd find a way to win this game. Oklahoma is 118th in passing, 100th in rushing attack. I think I saw stats like 65% of the Oklahoma team has never played in a Red River Showdown, versus Texas is like 65% has. So I don't think a lot of these Oklahoma guys don't even know what this rivalry truly is and they're truly in state, going to be getting thrown at them for 60 minutes. I think Quinn Ewers, you say that he's going to maybe be a little bit iffy on, first game back. Well, we just saw that with Connor Wegman last week, and he has showed zero signs of rust. This is Quinn Ewers, who's been part of the offensive plan in practice and on the sideline since he's been out. I don't see any issues in Quinn Ewers having a a slow start to the game. I think they know how big this is. They see that number 1 ranking next to that Texas Longhorn logo. And they're going to take care of business today. I think it's going to be a 24-point game. Texas covers easy.
Missouri's not a rival, and Texas isn't at home. 2 big differences.
Either is Oklahoma.
Oklahoma's
it's a
not
neutral
a home
field.
game,
I know that, but I'm saying it is a neutral field, but it's not a home game for Texas. Like, it's not a home game for Quinn Ewers to have like the crowd behind it. I mean, this is going to be a 50-50 split. And I say it's not a rivalry because last week, Missouri, I mean, those games happen. No matter what, Oklahoma's had this. I mean, this is their national championship.
It's their Super Bowl this year. It is.
This is what it's going to be for them. For Texas, they don't want to lose this game, but we saw them lose this game last year, and they went to the college football playoff and had a shot to go to the national championship game. So this isn't their end all be all. For Oklahoma, it 100% is, because we know
Dylan Gabriel was
Oklahoma
quarterback. Maybe Oklahoma wins, but because of these unexperienced young quarterbacks. So why are we still talking about this game? We got 15 minutes left till kickoff. We're still talking about this shit.
Let's get into the main event here.
This game's going to be better than the next one that we're talking about. That's why.
Oh boy, here we
go.
You're
right. It's going to be over at halftime. Ducks 34, Ohio State 3.
Battle for the top of the Big Ten. Number 2 Ohio State 5-0 versus number 3 5-0 Oregon. Eugene, Oregon. Austin Stadium, little stadium but mighty, very loud.
56,000 loud and proud, baby.
Hostile environment.
Very little.
I'm gonna. Oh boy.
Got him.
I'm gonna go with what I'm gonna go with here, and then I'll let you two duke it out and just sit back here and laugh. This is what it boils down to me. I picked Ohio State as my national champion at the beginning of the year, begrudgingly. I think they're the most talented team in college football. That hasn't changed. I think Will Howard has had to make plays, and he's done so when he's had to. I said this as a joke, kind of just to poke fun at Cottrell, but they're doing it. They're playing a lot of offensively. They air it out a little bit more, but they're playing football like Michigan played football last year. They have a dominant defense. They have 2 star running backs, and they do. They're running the ball. They're pounding people, and then they're playing everything off play action there. They're like getting Will Howard out of the pocket. They're letting him use his legs if he has to. If not, like I said, they're running play action to Ibuka or Smith. He's uncoverable, and when he is covered, he still makes catches. My concern, as it was at the beginning of the year, the only really concern I had about Oregon was their back end. I think they're going to get tested today. I also think Ohio State's going to be able to run the ball. If both those things happen, I think it's an uphill climb for Oregon. Defensively, the one concern I have, and I've had it for the last 4 years, I need to see how tough Ohio State is. They talk a good game. They have a bunch of great players. They have 3 or 4 that are probably going to get drafted in the first round. But when they get against a team that will just line up and say, hey, we're going to smash mouth you, they don't always come through. That being said, I don't think Oregon's that team. They don't have Bucky Irving anymore. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball with sustained success against Ohio State today, not against that front 4. I think they create havoc. I think they force Dylan Gabriel into a mistake or 2. I like Ohio State's offense matchup against Oregon's a lot, probably more than I should. And the more I delved into it, the more I liked it. I like Ohio State today. I think they cover. Final score for me, Ohio State 38, Oregon 27.
The second you said that Ohio State was winning, everything you said after that, I totally blacked out. Total bullshit.
You guys be the only time you black out today, because it's going to get ugly for you. Ultimately, of course, I mean, there's no suspense here. I'm rolling with Ohio State. I'm rolling with Ohio State because they're a better football team. Alex, while you were on your hiatus at the beginning of the show, I said that Ohio State, this was a game that originally, where I thought could be a true toss-up. In August, like August 1st, I thought this game was going to be a true toss-up. But seeing how both teams have played so far throughout this season, I think Ohio State is just clearly the better team. Better on offense, more balanced on offense. And I make no bones about it. Dylan Gabriel's not that good of a quarterback. I think you're going to force him into
Mhm.
some mistakes here. If he can't dink and dunk, then there's nothing going to be there for him. And I don't think he's going to be able to hold on to the ball and try to get the deep shots with Ohio State's defensive line, getting after him. Best news I've seen all day is that everybody on scholarship will be healthy, and that's going to be the first time that's been the case
Good.
all season for this
No
Ohio State
excuses
team.
allowed.
So I'm really looking forward to that. Ultimately, though, I think Dylan Gabriel does turn the ball over twice in this matchup, and I think Ohio State early starts to slow down that Oregon rushing attack. Like Jordan James, I don't think he gets going early, which starts to make Oregon more of a one-dimensional team, and I think that's exactly where you want to be for Ohio State. So for me in this game, I like Ohio State to win 38-21.
Okay, that's okay. This is fun.
All right,
I love
Alex, go ahead. Your
So,
time to
Ohio-
shine,
so here,
brother.
Ohio State leads the overall series. They played 10 times. Ohio State's won 9 of them. Oregon's only won a measly 1. And I get that, all right? But for me, it's always about what have you done for me lately? And the last time these two teams played, who got that dub? The Oregon Ducks did. 35-28 in 2021. All right? And here's another thing. Ohio State's defense only allowing 6 points per game. But when you live in a bakery, like Ohio State's schedule is, and you get cupcake after cupcake after cupcake thrown at you, it's real easy to look like a real good juggernaut team. Okay, Ohio State's defensive line get penetration every game I've seen. Every single time I've watched, they always are getting in the backfield, forcing the quarterback to kind of rush their throw, get them off cycle. But here's the thing. Dan Lanning set a timer for Dylan Gabriel. 2.5 seconds is how long he wants the ball in Dylan Gabriel's hands before it's into the hands of the receivers. And what's the best way to counterbalance a good defensive line rush attack? Is getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands and getting it to the perimeter. Yes, I understand Ohio State has very quick cornerbacks on the outside and has a great secondary. I think they have 6 interceptions this season, I think, Trail, so far on that. Oh no, they have 4 interceptions in the secondary and 17 sacks up front in the first 5 games. This defense is nothing to kind of laugh at or make fun of. So I'm taking this game very seriously. I know the defense that we're coming up against, but I also know what Dan Lanning's offensive scheme is. And I also know that both of these teams have been holding punches all season long. We haven't seen the Oregon Ducks offense at full capacity, and we sure as hell haven't seen Chip Kelly using all of his weapons to full capacity this season yet either. Neither team has really had to do that. So I feel like we're going to see a really big game plan change this week, including Will Howard probably going to be on more designed runs. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to get more designed runs. I think this game is going to be a battle of the trenches. But on for the Oregon Ducks defensive side of the ball, we got Birch, who's got five sacks already this season. Jordan Birch and Mateo Ugilungale, I believe is how you say it. 8.5 sacks between the two. I think they're going to eat today against Will Howard. Like I said, only one of these quarterbacks has beaten a team that's made it to the college football playoff, and that's Dylan Gabriel last year when he beat Texas, which we just talked about. And that team had a better defense than this Ohio State team. So I think this game, you can laugh all you want. Thank you, Justin. At least one person is taking this game seriously. Okay, look, Oregon State is the top 3 rushing team in the country. They're averaging 264 yards per game. Oregon's defense held them to 131 yards, their lowest of the season. They also had the chance to face Austin Jeanty of Boise State, holding them to 80 yards under their season average. You guys seem to think you guys are going to be running all over.
What is their season average?
What's their season average?
What's their season average?
302.
All right, so 220 on the ground. Michigan's I think 4th or 5th of the country still in rushing, and they average like 220 a game.
Jeanty went for 192 yards himself.
I'm aware of that, and it still held them 80 yards under their season average. We can bend, but we ain't going to break, baby. You are coming to Austin Stadium, 56,000 strong. Cottrell, get that dumb look off your face, bro. Because that's the look you're going to have.
What do you mean you bend but don't break? He averaged 8 yards a carry and had 3 touchdowns. It sounds like he fucking broke your back.
Y'all should have won that
the game. Yes, we should have. What are you talking about?
Well, that was Boise. That was Boise State. They came in the
Boise State, though.
Boise
That's the best
State,
running back in the country.
Boise State came into Autzen.
Mm-hmm.
Boise State, non-Power 5 school, may make the playoff. Boise State came to Autzen and gave
first running back.
Everything that they had and won. And you guys won the game by 3 points. And you're telling me
just
that
talked last week.
Slowed down Oregon State and now they're about to slow down this Ohio State offense and win.
Where's
If you
Ohio
beat Boise
State's
State
rushing
by
offense
3,
ranked?
what'd
Where's Ohio State's rushing offense ranked?
I don't
30th,
care.
35th.
care.
It does matter. It does matter. We
Yeah,
have
Does
had
when you
better
factor in
teams.
they're playing half the game.
Every single game so far. Their third string running back
Wait,
has,
so
I believe,
Bill,
more
when they're
yards
up by
and more
30 points, they're
touchdowns
not
than
running
Donovan
the entire
Edwards.
second half.
They're not running freaking Travion Henderson and Judkins.
Right?
No.
Thank
That's
you,
like
Justin.
when we were up 30. When we were up 30 on everybody last year, guess who wasn't in the game? Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards.
Exactly.
Well, I love how last week Justin said it just right. Cottrell was talking Genty up last week, and now he's discrediting him.
No, he's not.
I'm not
discrediting
him.
This point is going over your head, which is the problem.
I'm literally not discrediting him. I'm talking about Boise State.
Best running back in the country. Ohio State is not that.
I am talking. Before the year, you would have said that Judkins was the best running back in the country
when he played for Ole Miss.
So, to your point, they have that, and they have Henderson together. And you're telling me that, again, it's not the fact that Genty's going to do his thing. Like, I think if Genty played us, like, he's going to do his thing. He's going to have yards, all like all that. My thing is that game shouldn't have been 37-34. I think you could have had Genty go for a 150 and that still be a 37-21 football game. Like, I think those two things can't happen. The fact that game was as tight as it was, as late as it was, and it was in Autzen, I just think it's just funny to me that you have all this confidence in a team that, granted, Genty may be the best individual running back. You are out of your mind if you think Ohio State's rushing attack isn't better than what Boise State is as a whole.
That was Boise State's Super Bowl. That was our second game of the year, which we were still getting our offensive line kind of straightened out. Which, by the way, since then, we haven't allowed a sack in 3 straight weeks. What have y'all done in the last 3 weeks? Oh, yeah, that's right. Will Howard's thrown an interception in each of the last 3 weeks. He's going to continue to do that today.
Threw 2 last week in the red zone.
Bill, what happened to shutting the up in that corner of yours and being neutral? Because now
being neutral. I'm going.
Not being neutral.
I am. This is what should worry you. Right, this is what should worry you. Justin just said, I called it. It would be 2 versus 1. The last team in the world that I ever want to pick in this football game is them. Ever.
It's
ever quick to do it.
Fact. Because they're better. I said it last year with certain things.
They're not better. Will Howard will lose them this game. I don't give a shit how good their fucking rushing attack is. I don't give a shit how good their defensive. Hold on, Bill. I don't care how good their defensive line is. Will Howard is the worst quarterback on the field in this game. He's even worse than Oregon Ducks' backup quarterback. Bill. If I could mute you right now, I would mute you. You've had your chance. You've chosen Ohio State. You sit there with your Michigan sweatshirt and you fucking take that shit off and throw it in the trash. You Benedict Arnold, you. But look,
please.
I'm
unbiased. That's what should worry you.
Unbiased.
Unbiased.
If you were unbiased,
you don't think I would like to come on here and pick Oregon?
Question: who wins?
I'd rather.
Who's the better quarterback? Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard.
Will Howard.
I'm not asking you, Cottrell.
Oh, I'm giving you my opinion anyway.
I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't think either one of them are good. But
who's the better
that being said,
Bill? I'm gonna swear to God, I'm gonna.
I will tell you this. If Ryan Day and Chip Kelly don't get stupid today, I will dare say that Will Howard probably has better numbers than Dylan Gabriel at the end of the game. I'm not saying he's a better quarterback, but again, I don't even like doing this. It's sacrilege to do it. But I'm telling you, watch Ohio State play football. Take the helmets off and take everything off. Watch how they're playing football this year.
You won't even say it. I know, Justin.
It'll remind you of exactly what you saw last year out of my team. They just throw the ball a little deeper because they can. Will Howard is playing within that system. That is what Ryan Day wanted to get. He wanted to get a quarterback that could extend plays if he has to, stay within the system, hit all the talented wide receivers when they're open, and move the football. And guess what? That's what he's doing. Is he a better quarterback than Dylan Gabriel? I don't know. I don't hate Dylan Gabriel like Cottrell does. I don't. I also don't think he's as good as you think he is either. I'm somewhere in between on that.
No, I agree. He's not Bo Nix. He's no Bo Nix. If this was last year, I think Bill's on my side. I'm just saying.
And we saw Bo Nix couldn't win the biggest games of his career. So
Bo Nix struggled against the same team twice that my team dismantled. So yeah, I don't know where I would have fallen if Bo Nix was still there.
I cannot wait for the.
Can I get a score prediction from you, Alex?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
38-27, Oregon.
That's the same score I picked, just the opposite.
Yeah. No,
Alex,
honestly, if we're looking at this completely, I think the Ducks do jump out to. I think Ohio State has struggles today playing at Austin Stadium. I think that the speed of Oregon does, I think, catch Ohio State early. I think Ohio State does make this game in the second half, but I do think Oregon does win by double digits at home.
I will say this: I'm going to be completely honest with both you guys. I think it's a very good football game. I think it absolutely lives up to what we think it's going to be. I'm
double
telling
digits,
you, like
Justin.
I cleared the schedule for tonight. I told Liz I'd be home. Like,
I told my wife the same thing. I'm like, don't talk to me. All day.
I am absolutely planning on watching every second of this football game. I wish you both luck. I just think it is. Bro, listen,
you're dead to me.
I'm not dead to you,
bro.
You picked against my team at every critical turn you could last year, so I don't want to hear shit from you. Okay, well, I'm supposed to be objectionable here and pick the team that I think is better. And I'll say this: it sounds good from last year. Just like I said, at the end of the day, Michigan was just better than everybody. Guess what? Ohio State's just better than Oregon. That's why they're going to win today.
Alex, can we make a friendly bet?
Oh yes, we need a bet.
I've been thinking about this. You got you. I know you have kids, and I know you're probably going trick or treating.
Oh man, this is gonna be personal. Ugh.
I would absolutely love and I'm going to, like, I have some Halloween parties to go to. I'll be handing out candy, so I'll be dressed up too. Halloween. Loser is the other person's like mascot. I'm not saying you got to go out and get the headgear and all that, but for Halloween, I'll dress up as a duck and I'll throw on the Oregon shirt with it.
I'll send you this hat.
If Ohio State wins, though, I need you to have like some sort of striped Buckeye gear on, similar to what Brutus wears.
Dude, there's so much of it at Goodwill that people don't want. It'd be easy to find some stuff.
Oh,
all right,
Jesus.
so are we on?
I'm virtually shaking your hand on this. I will do a Halloween bet.
All right. There's the first coast to coast gear bet. I love it.
This is good. I'm so angry.
I've been thinking about this all week. I was like, throw it out there. I'll see if he accepts. And I said it on air, so like you didn't give you room to back out of it, because like the text you kind of ignored a little bit, but now it's in front of everybody. So
I have a question. For the game tonight. Like, I know, like, when Michigan plays Ohio State, me and Coachella are usually, like, kind of quiet. Gene, like, tries to antagonize, but we don't fall for it. Like, are you guys going to be in the group chat, or, like, am I going to be talking to myself, or you guys just want to be left alone?
I'm going to be talking so much shit. Every yard, the Ducks gain. I'm like, there's one. There's 13.
I wait until I either wait until, like, we're up big and or, like, fourth quarter and, like, something big happens. It's usually my model. Like, I'm usually like away from the phone, but I mean, I welcome it. I see it all. Don't you worry. I see it all.
See, Coachella's just like me. Like, I could even be winning, and I'm like, all right, I'm not going to say anything because as soon as I do, something bad's going to happen.
Yep.
So like, I wait till the end until I know I'm going to win, and that's all right. It'll be. I'll just talk to Alex all night. That's fine. It'll be fun.
You guys have seen how I am for big games. Like, I'll have the drinks flowing a bit. Some high energy.
I was just going to ask, are we getting? Alex, you haven't experienced this yet, bro. Coachella has another gear, and it's wild, bro.
What are you talking about? I've seen Coachella's other gear in text form. I've seen it.
Bro, that's what I'm talking about. When did you see?
He was like hammered during an Ohio State game and just like
Ohio State, Penn State last year.
Right.
Like,
I forgot about that.
I wasn't with him, but through text message, I got a pretty
really drunk. When Coachella gets really drunk, he says some reckless shit through text. Like,
I remember.
Like, I can't remember the first time it happened, bro. It was one of my favorite like days ever. Coachella was going at Gene so much. Gene was so pissed. It got to the point. Gene was like, "Coachella's got to be drunk." I can't believe he's saying these things. I was dying, dude. I was dying. All right, so we're gonna have drunk Cottrell, overexcited Alex. This is gonna be a fun night. I'm looking forward to it.
Don't you worry, dude.
I will tell you this. I wish you both luck. I know it's a big game. I'm not gonna have that feeling this year. So, but may the best team win.
All right. Well, 12:06. Let's go ahead. We got kickoffs are starting to happen now, but we got pick 'em
games.
Eliminator Mountain's the best.
We got Pick'em, and then we got Eliminator Mountain. So, luckily this week we didn't have a big 12 o'clock slate. So, don't care that we went over.
Nope.
We appreciate you guys still watching.
All right, me and iBlack are crawling back into this.
Mm-hmm. Getting there slowly but surely.
Only 2 games down. Superdog just wiping the floor with you guys, but it's fine.
It's because you picked the same one as me last week.
I was dominating even more before that.
True.
All right. Well, it's your order here, brother.
Actually, let's do it like how we always do it.
Yeah,
we like letting Alex go last because we already gave our picks on Wednesday. So you can fly through yours. I'll go through mine, and then we'll let Alex round it out.
I'll go real quick. I got Missouri minus 27.5 at UMass. UMass is terrible. I'm actually shocked. Who was the other team that UMass got to go up there this year? I can't remember who it was.
In Massachusetts. That's so wild.
What?
Was it Wake Forest or it was some random
school? There was somebody. But Missouri's going up there now too. I think Missouri. Listen, I don't think UMass is going to be able to triple team Burden and get away with what a lot of other teams are getting away with. I think Missouri on a bounce back big.
Quick heads up: Missouri's already up 7-0, one pass to Luther Burden, 61-yard touchdown. So
there you go.
Yeah.
Arizona at BYU. It's down to 2.5, 3.5, whatever it is. I'm taking BYU at home again. I think they take care of business. Hate to do it. I took it on Wednesday. I'm not going to change it now. Ohio State minus 3.5 at Oregon. I think they win by a touchdown to 10 points. I just think they're a little bit better football team right now. Superdog, Mississippi State plus 33.5 at Georgia. I don't think Georgia's going to overlook them or anything. Georgia has who's Georgia have next week?
Texas.
I don't think they're going to get caught looking ahead or anything like that, but I think when they get up big in the third quarter with them playing Texas next week and having to travel, I think Kirby's going to pull everybody and get everybody out of the game, make sure they're healthy. So I think Mississippi State, again, just probably stanks me a few Superdog points at the end because I think they're going to be playing a lot of backups and reserves in the second half. So Mississippi State plus 33.5 for me.
So for me, I'll go quick. Me and Bill agree on the first game. Got Ohio State minus 3.5 at Oregon. I already told you guys think they're going to win by 14, 17 points in that football game. I just like them to take care of business in that one on the road there. I think they're just a better football team. Second game I like Pittsburgh minus 3.5 at home versus California. I think for Cal, obviously they had the heartbreak last week, traveling across the country to Pittsburgh against a Pittsburgh team that's really good up into this point in the season. Pittsburgh is going to be a team that's going to be competing for potentially going to the ACC championship game. I think they take care of business at home. Last game I like West Virginia plus 2.5 at home versus Iowa State. I think this Iowa State team has been getting a lot of love, and I think they've shot all the way up to number 11 in the country. And I don't think that team is that good. So I think they go in kind of overlooking this West Virginia team that's been underwhelming so far throughout this year. And I think West Virginia shows them that Morgantown is no easy place to play and ultimately wins the game outright at home. And then for my super dog this week, going to a rivalry game. I like Stanford plus 23.5 at Notre Dame. I get it. Stanford's not a great team. And, this isn't the Stanford of old that had McCaffrey or Andrew Luck. But whenever you get in these rivalry games, I think anything can happen. And I think Stanford has a good enough offense to throw the ball down the field to put up points against Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's offense has kind of been Jekyll and Hyde. So I think this can be a weird, potentially lower scoring game where Notre Dame's never in any danger, but Stanford could pick up super dog points.
All right. Well, earlier we kind of alluded that I was going to be picking the Arizona BYU game later in the show, and that is no lie. So with BYU 1-11 over the last 12 and day games at home, I love that stat. I got to go Arizona today. I am again picking against BYU in Provo. Second time's the charm, baby. So Arizona covering that 2.5 against BYU. I also have Missouri covering the 27.5 point spread against Massachusetts. Going up to Massachusetts, I would love to be at that game. See the atmosphere of that Massachusetts versus Missouri. That's an interesting crowd mixture. And then we're going to go to the Mountain West Conference. San Jose State University. Have not talked about them a lot this year. They have one of the top 3 receivers in the country, Nash, and they're right now going up to Colorado State. They're +1 underdogs right now against Colorado State. San Jose State right now is 4-1 on the season. Really a surprise team in the Mountain West Conference. I think they're going to continue their role today, turn it into 5-1, and they win outright against Colorado State. And then for my super dog, I'm going to mix this up a little bit. We're jumping over to the ACC. We talked about Clemson today, Dabo Swinney. I have a feeling they're going to Wake Forest today. Wake Forest got their ground attack going last week. They are 2-3 on the season. But I have a feeling that they're going to get up for this Clemson Tigers game, especially at home. I think Wake Forest is going to control the line of scrimmage. I think the Wake Forest is going to be able to control the ball and run the ball quite efficiently. So I have for my super dog, Wake Forest, 20.5-point underdogs to Clemson as my super dog.
Bill, you see, he didn't even have the stones to pick Oregon is plus 3.5. Just didn't have any goal there, you know?
I'm not going to jinx
it. He didn't.
I'm just saying, if you felt that confident in your team and you're getting points at home, I don't know why you wouldn't take it. I mean,
okay, how about this? How this?
No, it's too late. It's too late. No, it's too late. It is too late. Too late. No.
Wrong record.
No,
I will take off the Missouri game that's already in progress.
No, it's too late.
If you want. I don't like to pick Oregon. I've never pick Oregon. It's a jinx. I will. Did you pick Ohio State? I didn't hear you pick Ohio State.
I did.
Okay, cool. So that's a loss. That's a loss.
I will defend him in this aspect. I never picked Michigan, so I do understand it.
Yeah.
I don't pick Ohio State often, but when I do, you should know that that's going to happen. What did I do? Like 2 weeks ago, I was like, hey, this is the team that they're going to do it against. Like when it's low-hanging fruit, you do it.
Man, if I picked all the low-hanging fruit you left me, you would just be destroyed every week. But I just leave them alone because it's rude. I'm a good friend, all right?
A very unconfident good friend.
Show the Eliminator Mountain. Let's get out of here and go watch the football. All right. Boom.
Yes, I'm in a chopper.
I'm in the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Yes, as you can see, Notre Dame pulling Undertaker, coming back to life. Back in the race of things after being on life support for weeks. They are now back in the thick of things. Then, of course, you got the referee separating Oregon and Ohio State, battling for that number 2 spot in the country. Honestly, the winner of this game
number 1.
Yes. Do we think the winner of this game jumps 100%. Over Texas? And Texas wins by like 50.
They should, but then Texas gets to face Georgia next week, and they can earn it right back. So
I'm not even going to get into the rankings BS. I'm the most anti-ranking person in the world.
It's ridiculous right now.
It's ridiculous
with the SEC.
I will say this: we lost to Washington. We had every right to go from 10 to 24. Not arguing that. USC went from 11 to unranked. I'm not arguing that. How Alabama goes on the road and loses to Vanderbilt and only goes. How do they only fall 6 spots? How is that? Like it's no different than us losing to Washington on the road or USC losing to Minnesota on the road. Both our teams dropped 14 and 16 spots respectively. Why does Alabama only fall 6?
Georgia loses, and I get it, to the number 1 team in the country that, at that time.
That's
but
different.
You have Penn State, but you still have undefeated teams behind them. Like Penn State, Tennessee, Oregon. Like at that point, there was no reason why they should have been, like Georgia should have been no higher than 7 or 8 at that point.
But I at least understand that because you lost to the number 1 team in the country on the road. So yeah, I'm not expecting you to drop 14 spots for that.
Right.
I get that. But how do you go on the road and lose to an unranked team, which is exactly what Michigan and exactly what USC did? And again, I honest to God, I was like, if we're going to be 25, we'll be lucky. I wasn't expecting us to be ranked. We held on at 24. They kicked USC completely out. How does Alabama only fall 6 spots? That's a joke. That's a joke. They should be like 18. It's not like they didn't go to Ole Miss and lose. They went to Vanderbilt and lost.
But they have a number 1 win on their record. So I mean,
I don't care. Everybody else has ranked wins too. We're too early
in the
season. We're too early in the season for that to matter. It's still a shit loss. It's the worst loss that anybody has in the top 10. True or false?
Oh, for sure. It's the second worst loss of the entire season.
Correct.
Notre Dame's NIU loss is the only one that's worse.
Correct.
Okay, so Vanderbilt becomes bowl eligible. Is this loss still seen as the worst loss?
Yes.
A 6-6 loss to a 6-6 Vanderbilt team is still awful. Yes.
Northern Illinois is going to be bowl eligible too, and that doesn't give Notre Dame any kind of excuse. Anyway, back to the mountain.
Back to the mountain. As you can see, Utah's still on there. So next week, Utah is going to be a little bit in a different location than they are now.
Yeah. You got to get another chopper up in the air, bro.
Hey, I made this
No
yesterday
way.
morning. All right, I didn't expect them to get their ass beat by Arizona State last night.
Utah is circling in the choppers as well. Graveyard's getting bigger. I like it.
Well, after they drop off USC, they're gonna have to come back around and pick up Utah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Refuel.
That's true. That's true. USC would go on the ground today if they lose.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Listen,
after this week and next week, the teams actually still climbing this mountain are going to be a lot fewer. That graveyard is going to get bigger, and this is going to be a lot of fun. And I keep mentioning it. This is rivalry week number 1. Next week is debatably better.
Facts.
This week was probably a little bit better for the show, obviously because of Ohio State, Oregon. But next week, the slate's probably a little bit better. So we are in for a hell of a ride this week and next week. 2 great weeks of football. And then like I said, then that kicks us pretty much into November where we get into the stretch run. So the next 7 or 8 weeks are if you're a fan of college football, it's just not going to get any better.
And the cool thing about these next 2 weeks is that we have 2 and 3 facing each other right now. Next week we got 1 and 4. Well, it'll be higher than 1 and 4 because one of the 2 teams ahead of them has to lose. But you're going to have a couple teams at the top really start to separate themselves. It's going to be, a combination of Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia that really just starts to separate themselves based on, what happens these next 2 weeks here. So that's going to be pretty fun to see as well.
Hey, can't forget Alabama, Tennessee. I mean, there are so many games this week and next week that are just going to be bangers. I'm excited. But no, let's get this college football Saturday underway for everybody, and let's go watch some football.
Agreed. We ran a little bit over, but that's what happens when you have a great slate of games. So,
and you're not missing anything at 12.
Not with Oklahoma, Texas not being 12, which is wild. So, one of the guys on Twitter literally just put up a graph, like a chart of when everybody's playing today, and had them marked off by time slots, like good games. And it's funny, 12 to 3, there's nothing, and then 3:30, it's full, and it goes all the way through the night. If you're a college football fan, you're gonna have a good day today, depending on who your team is. But like I said, I honest to God, I'm excited to watch the Ohio State Oregon game tonight. Mainly because I think we finally get to find out what both teams really are. If I'm being honest, I have my thoughts on both teams. I think they're both very good football teams. I think they both make the playoff. I just think one is a little bit better at this point in time and going to take charge in the Big Ten. But I'm excited to watch that game tonight. I am. I love to watch good football, regardless of Michigan's involved or not. So it's going to be a great night. Let's get everybody out of here. Gentlemen, any final thoughts, parting shots, last bullet you have in the chamber you'd like to fire?
Well, the last bullet I have in the chamber is going towards the duck because we're going duck hunting tonight.
Damn. Great, Matt. Great.
It's not duck season.
I think it is around here.
It's not here, baby, and that's what we're playing. That's all that matters.
It's never duck season around there, so.
True. Gosh. Trell. Are you in?
He's gonna end on the L.
Are you in Pennsylvania right now?
I am not. I am in the great Columbus, Ohio.
I wouldn't say that, but that's fine.
Are you still going to Pennsylvania this weekend?
I am not. I'm not.
Damn, we had this whole thing.
I know. We were getting ready to wine and dine him and all you, bro. They're not coming anymore.
Look,
Bills
Justin said it right.
They're all at home.
About to get crushed.
Okay. That's it, Bill. That's all I got.
Alex, you got the last word.
I don't need the last word. The Ducks are gonna have the last word.
All right, it's kind of weak, but we'll end there. It's fine.
Weak.
Take it.
Look, the weak one.
No, I expect. Listen,
he gave you the last word. And
I gave you the last word.
Now you're going back on it.
I don't need it.
This is a compliment to you though, but you're a witty, funny guy. I expected better there. I expected more. I expected more.
We talk on the field. We don't do this for clicks. All right, we don't do this for likes. We do this for wins, baby.
Yeah, that's that time in the same team. That was Colorado. Now we're just narrative.
We're getting out of here. Bye, people.
Goodbye.